out.
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
We'll know in a very short period of time, but it looks like it could be something that will be not good. Believe me, not good.
I see issue with that. And
okay,
again, hey.
You're not going to be able to insult your way to the presidency. That's not going to happen.
I don't know who created Pokemon Go, but I'm trying to figure out how we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
I'm Ted Cruz, and my pronoun is kiss my ass.
So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to foot.
Not good. Believe me, not good.
To announce that we have successfully recovered the so-called missing minute from the surveillance footage of Jeffrey Epstein's prison cell on the evening that he died. Let's pull that up. As you can clearly see, no one enters his jail cell. As far as the mysterious orange shape that appears here, it's a little orange kitty. The kitty never enters the jail cell. It just stands on its hind legs and does a little dance. You're a good kitty. Who's a good kitty? You're a good kitty. Therefore, we can finally put this conspiracy to bed.
Hello, dissidents. Welcome, one and all, to a Sunday evening edition of the Do Dissidents podcast. Keaton Weiss here with Russell Dobular, of course.
Hello.
What's up?
All right, that's too dark. Yeah, I'm going to turn that up. What happened? I had it adjusted.
Why is it so dark? What's it so dark in there for? Light. He does this in a windowless room, basically. Yeah. Yeah, there you go. There we go. See, that's better. I like that. Yeah.
The whole thing fell back.
Oh, his lighting kit fell over. Wow, look at that. All right. Well, hey, thanks everybody very much for being here tonight. Appreciate you all. Great crowd in here to start things off. 954 strong in the YouTube chat, 491 filing in over on Rumble. It's great to see you all here. Thanks very much for making time for us this evening. We have a great show tonight. I am very excited about the show this evening. We've got a great mix of stuff. I was catching the beginning of Sabby's show, and she said the same thing. She says, great mix tonight of serious stuff, funny stuff. It's a well-rounded program tonight, so thank you guys all very much for being a part of it. Appreciate it very much. We are, like I said, counting down the days to our trip to St. Louis, Missouri. We are going to be leaving 2 weeks from Thursday. 2 weeks from Thursday is when I will be heading on out. What's the matter with you?
It's very weird. Like there's something weird going on with the lighting. I don't know what it is though.
Yeah.
You see, like everything's kind of dark.
Yeah, now it's getting a little bit brighter. It seems to be adjusting.
Oh, I know what it is.
What's that?
I know what it is. It's going through the wrong camera.
Yeah, I think it's going through the computer camera. We have to switch that. There you go. That's better.
I was like, okay, I'd never have it this bright. All right, now I got to adjust it back.
Yeah, now
down.
it's too bright.
So talk about how you got the twins drunk.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yes. Yeah, no, we did have a family date last night. And so that was fun. Hope everybody had an okay weekend. The weather was really nice here in upstate New York. It was nice all around from what I heard. It's been 55 this morning, walking around in a hoodie this morning. Kind of crazy. How's my lighting? My lighting's good? All right, very well. All right.
All right, we're all set up. That's good?
Yep, that's good. That's good.
All right.
All right. All right. So, well, like I said, folks, plenty to get to tonight. So we got Q&A after the show tonight. Shout out to Jake in the booth. Everybody get strapped in for a rowdy time. It's going to be a fun time We got Bill Burr versus Ben Shapiro. We got Tucker Carlson versus Nick Fuentes. I like to call that segment smoked mayonnaise. That's what that was right there. And then we got some Epstein news. We got some
we got a bum
Gaza
fight
news at the end. We got a lot. So, all right, we're going to start out.
I caught a bum fight at the bus stop.
There you go. All right, so we'll start out with kind of the mildest stuff of the night, but some of the funnier stuff. I think this was pretty. It was pretty funny to see the truth catch up to what we've all been experiencing, which were that these economic numbers that they were bragging about these last couple of months. Turns out they were how you say not real, not
good. Believe me, not good.
No, not good.
The week started off very promising, though. Friend of the working man. Oh, hang on. You got to take that down, I think.
Oh, yeah, there we go.
Okay. Friend of the working man, Howard Lutnick, cheered all of the hard-working men and women of the United States by touting the new GDP numbers. Pink man. The pig man cometh. GDP just surged to 3%, and the Trump economy has officially arrived. Well, that wound up being a little more ironical than he probably intended, not least because those numbers are bullshit. Trump's tariffs didn't grow the economy. They rigged the numbers. Q2 GDP hit 3%, not from real growth, but because imports collapsed after businesses rushed to beat Trump's tariff hikes in Q1. The drop in imports artificially boosted GDP, masking weak consumer demand and falling business investment. I thought he's got a bunch of genius business people around him. I can't believe that got past Lutnick. I can't believe he didn't catch that this was a false number that didn't reflect the real economy. Can't believe it. But it got worse. Friday, the much anticipated jobs report came out, and the Trump administration had to revise their numbers down by 258,000 over the past 2 months. Over 250,000 new jobs that they reported did not actually exist. Here's a little story from CNN about that, a little clip from it.
Than expected. But the real news is there were all these massive downward revisions for both May and June. May, originally, the government said the economy added 144,000. Now, 19,000. That is a major revision. This is the biggest revisions we've seen since COVID. June was originally at 147. Now it's just at 14,000. You can see it on that bar chart there. June was the worst since December of 2020. I just talked to Joe Brusuelas. He's the chief economist over at RSM, and he said, this report that we just got, when you look at the July numbers and the revisions, he says this is the worst major economic report we've gotten since the end of the pandemic era.
So, what is Generalissimo Donaldo Trumpo going to do upon receiving this kind of news? Revise his economic plans? Maybe reconsider his tariffs? No. You fired the person who reported the numbers. I was just informed that our country's jobs numbers are being produced by a Biden appointee, Dr. Erica McEntarfer. Where do these names come from? The Commissioner of Labor. Have you ever known anyone named McEntarfer?
No.
Ever? No. The Commissioner of Labor Statistics who faked I hear she's fake. I hear she doesn't exist. Have you ever met anyone named McEntarfer? She's probably not even a person. The Commissioner of Labor Statistics who faked the job numbers before the election to try and boost Kamala's chances of victory. This is the same Bureau of Labor Statistics that overstated the jobs growth in March 2024 by approximately 818,000, and then again right before the 2024 presidential election in August and September by 112,000. These were records. No one can be that wrong. We need accurate jobs numbers. I have directed my team to fire this Biden political appointee immediately. She will be replaced with someone much more competent and qualified. Important numbers like this must be fair and accurate. They can't be manipulated for political purposes. Mick and Fart said there were only 73,000 jobs added. A shock. But more importantly, that a major mistake was made by them. 258,000 jobs downward in the prior 2 months. Similar things happened in the first part of the year, always to the negative. It's almost as if my whole theory of economics is wrong, and that's why nobody's tried to do the kind of crazy shit I'm doing since the 30s, otherwise known as the Great Depression. Similar things happened in the first part of the year, always to the negative. The economy is booming under Trump, despite a Fed that also plays games, this time with interest rates, where they lowered them twice and substantially just before the presidential election. I assume in the hopes of getting Kamala elected. How did that work out? Jerome Too Late Powell should also be put out to pasture. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Okay.
You know, at the Wharton School of Finance, they have this thing they teach you. It's called kill the messenger. That's what you learn in the Wharton School of Finance.
That's what you learn, otherwise known as the Henry VIII.
Right.
So he went on to explain why he was firing the Bureau of Labor Statistics chief.
Why did you fire the head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics? Because I think her numbers were wrong. Just like I thought her numbers were wrong before the election. Days before the election, she came out with these beautiful numbers for Kamala. I guess Biden/Kamala. And she came out with these beautiful numbers trying to get somebody else elected. Then right after the election, I think on the 15th, November 15th, she had an $800,000 or $900,000 massive reduction. Said she made a mistake. That woman's numbers are
on the monthly jobs report. Going forward, why should anyone trust the numbers?
Well, that's the big thing. You're right. No, you're right. Why should anybody trust numbers? You go back to election day. Look what happened 2 or 3 days before with massive, wonderful job numbers, trying to get him elected or her elected, trying to get whoever the hell was running. Because you go back, and they came out with numbers that were very favorable to Kamala, okay, to trying to get him elected, trying to get her elected. And then on the 15th of November or thereabouts, they had an $800,000 or $900,000 overstatement reduction right after the election. It didn't work because you know who won, John? I won.
But here's the thing. Your supporters have had issues with these numbers.
I've had issues with the numbers for a long time. But we're doing so well. I believe the numbers were phony, just like they were before the election. And there were other times. So you know what I did? I fired her.
Right.
And you know what? I did the right thing.
If any government official going forward is presenting data or information you don't like, should they fear for their job?
I've always had a problem with these numbers. You know, I was thinking about it this morning. Before the numbers that came out, I said, who is the person that does these numbers? And then they gave me stats about before the election. I had a similar problem. I mean, she gave out numbers that were so good for the Democrats. It was like unbelievable. And then right after the election, she corrected those numbers with, I think, almost 900,000 corrections. I think nobody had ever seen anything like it. Well, today she did the same thing with the 253,000, whatever the number was. No, we need people that we can trust. I mean, your question is a very good one. We need people we can trust.
Okay, now I want to show you very quickly what a lying, degenerate scumbag Donald Trump is. So he repeated this multiple times, that they pumped up the numbers by 800,000 and then revised it down after the election. It's literally exactly the opposite. Look at the date. August 21st, 2024. So if you're a politically motivated appointee trying to get Kamala Harris elected, would you drop this 2.5 months before an election? U.S. added 818,000 fewer jobs than thought, adding to concerns about the economy. Not only does this undermine his claim, repeated claim, that they didn't do this until after the election, it knocks down his claim that this never happened. Nobody's ever seen this before. This happens all the time because they have to revise their numbers once they get the information from the state. Now, you could maybe question a system that could be that far off, but the evidence actually shows quite the opposite of what he's claiming about it being political, because you see, most people understand. See, now you're fucking with the money. Now you're fucking with the stuff these people care about. Most of them understand, as tempting as it might be to fudge numbers, it's in the long run, the credibility that you're going to lose with the international investors by doing that is just not worth it. People have understood that until now. That's why you don't fire the person who does the report. Who's going to trust, and that's what the reporter kept asking, who's going to trust the numbers coming out of the United States after you've set this precedent where this person who, again, I just demonstrated, there was no political motive in the way she reported numbers. There is no way you would report that you were off by almost 1 million jobs 2.5 months before an election if you were trying to get Kamala Harris elected. Now, you want to say she's bad at her job for other reasons. We don't know that. There's no reason to think that because, again, this is very common for them to do these kinds of revisions. It's not directed at him. This is just one more reason that this country is becoming a laughingstock around the world. This is banana republic shit. So Spencer Hackimian posted this. Trump loved the jobs report from 2 months ago, produced by the same woman that he fired today. Funny how that works. Great job numbers. Stock market up big. At the same time, billions pouring in from tariffs. He was very excited when he liked the numbers. So anyone whose numbers are going to be bad, I mean, you know, Trump, everything's the greatest. He's doing the greatest economy. He's got the greatest jobs numbers, right? So anyone who tells him the numbers are bad going forward, of course he's going to say, well, there must be something wrong with them because this is the Trump economy. It can't be anything but great. And this was pretty funny. Carolyn Levitt portrayed there. We are pleased to report from the new MAGA Patriotic Bureau of Labor Statistics that thanks to leader Trump, employment is up 10 million jobs for the month of August. Yeah, that's what you're going to get. Like this is one of those things where people understand, no matter who the administration is, that this is kind of a nuclear option. That if you start firing the people who bring in the numbers, no one's going to trust your numbers anymore. It's going to fuck you with the credit ratings agencies. It's going to fuck you with international finance. It's going to fuck your markets. Nobody's going to trust your country as an investment because they don't know what's really going on in your country. Trump doesn't care. Trump cares about looking good, like any tin pot dictator does. And he really doesn't care what's real. He cares about what he can tell you the reality is.
Yeah, but even in that context, you're not dealing with a whole lot of runway because, you know, we saw what happened during the campaign season when Joe Biden and then Kamala Harris tried to gaslight people into saying, no, the economy's great. We've got inflation under control.
Right.
People didn't feel that way. And people don't feel that way now.
Right.
His numbers on inflation are worse with independents than Biden's were. Biden was at negative 38 with independents on inflation when he left office. Trump is at negative 45. So that's really the number that you look to for two reasons. One, independents swing races come the midterms and even the statewide and some of the city races this November. And also, the independents are not sort of ideologically wed to a certain party, so they're less likely to say, yes, I approve of the job he's doing, even if they don't. Whereas a Republican is likely to give Trump a good mark just because he's a member of the team. So, yeah, if you look, attitudes about the economy, broadly speaking, are quite bad. And I notice prices continue to go up. He keeps saying inflation is coming down. No, it is not. No, it's not. I just went grocery shopping the other day. I go to Trader Joe's because it's cheaper than the big supermarkets. So, wife gets home. We're thinking, should we get takeout? No, let's save some money. Let's go cook. So I run out to the, Trader Joe's. I buy what I need to cook, $55 just for that. I'm going to say we should have just gotten takeout. Like, why didn't we? Right? We should have just gotten a pizza for that. So no, things keep going up. People understand that. There is no way to gaslight the public about this because they live in the economy every day. They cannot escape it. So this kind of gaslighting does not work on anyone. Now, you have the true believers who will just, if you tell them, ignorance is strength, freedom is slavery, they'll say they believe it just because that gives them some meaning in their life. It gives Benny Johnson the opportunity to grift off of that narrative, but that's a very small minority of people. No one's buying this. And these numbers, I think, were a real reality check for a lot of people who thought, wait a minute, things seem to suck just as bad now as they did at this time last year. What do you mean job numbers are good? What do you mean economic numbers are good? The economy doesn't feel good. Well, that's because it wasn't good. It's because they were fake. Fake numbers. Fake.
Well, you had, I almost included it, but I didn't want to create a whole other segment, which it would have been. Alex Jones was right on there. Yeah, no, he has to fire her. Yeah, he has to. He's getting control of this deep state bureaucracy. That's just, you have to not care so little about your audience to back this play. And what he's saying about Powell, he's put Powell in a position of a stagflationary environment where, normally you would want to cut interest rates with a jobs number like that. But because of the tariffs, he can't, because you have rising inflation, which naturally you're going to have when you impose inflationary tariffs. So he's between a rock and a hard place where, normally, under normal circumstances, without these tariffs, he probably would be cutting rates already.
Yeah, exactly. All right, folks. We always like to shout out the creator of those openings. We meant to tonight, but I just got distracted because of the technical snafu. So this is by, as you can see, it was on the screen, Faking the News. So shout out to Faking the News. Go subscribe to them. They got a YouTube channel, which is very, very small. I guess they're pretty new. But
that was very well done.
Yeah, good work.
Very funny.
Apparently, they have more of an Instagram presence than YouTube, which kind of makes sense. It's kind of Instagram-friendly content. But go to Faking the News. Check them out on Instagram. I assume they're on TikTok, too, and they do have a small YouTube channel. So part of the reason we do those openings is to give a shout-out to some creative online peers. Meant to do it tonight, but I got distracted from that tech snafu. So go check out Faking the News. All right. We will go to some super chats here. Artie Blarty Fart Blast. Aussies took the NSW government to the high court so they can march for Palestine on the Sydney Harbor Bridge. Aussies. I get what you're saying. Peaceful, but cops did try some passive BS. Julian Assange led that march, which we'll have some. I have one slide about that. I think it's
at first I thought you said Aussie. I was like, oh, what is this? One of these fucking Aussie fans?
He meant Aussies. He meant Aussies like Australians. That's what MT Unit DD, thank you for the $5. Appreciate that. Matrix for $4.99 says Sphincter Knucklebuster, your signature sign on. Thank you, Matrix, for that very much. Shout out to Jake in the booth fielding Rumble rants. Keaton, my wife, is talking shit about your shelves. Just thought you should know. Yeah, I wanted to decorate them more. I just didn't have time, so I will probably do that for Tuesday's show. Appreciate that. Furl Screen Fire Dancer says, I love the openings of this. You never know what you're going to get. The other day, welcome one and all. Russell interrupts. I can't hear you. Throws Keaton off completely. Russell's tech just amazes me. That's right. That's 2 in a row. 2 in a row. Yes, he started out last week. I can't hear you. Yeah. Russ blunders around in a confused haze while Keaton vamps. This is the show, folks. Dirtbag Heaven. Thank you, Killer Hitton. Appreciate that. So you'll survive the Jersey quake. Yeah, there's a earthquake in Jersey that apparently New York City felt. Did you feel the earthquake? It happened when you were sleeping.
Dude, that was an earthquake?
Yeah,
that was my first thought, because I felt it, and I was like, I've experienced earthquakes here and in San Francisco. It's been a long time since there's been one here. I was like, that feels like a fucking earthquake.
Yeah, no, there was an earthquake in Jersey.
That is
apparently,
what it was.
Yeah.
Okay.
Some people did feel it in New York. I saw some people tweeting about it.
No, I definitely felt it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there you go. Abiding says the last chapter of Bibi's story won't end in a courtroom, but a bunker like the Fuhrer. Hillary, New York Times, etc. Jake Spoon should have spoken up sooner. Anybody who takes 19 months to speak out on a genocide has acted far too slowly. Thank you, Abiding. Brondo futures are bullish. There you go. Thank you, Eric Husso. Appreciate that. Let's see here. Professor Brown notes says DD needs to get that sweet AI going to go 24/7. Saturday, Sunday. I'm a shaking, jittering, nasty addict waiting for the fix. Yeah, we got to create AI versions of ourselves.
I mean, when we're dead, I'm sure YouTube will do that with our likenesses.
Yeah, that will come in handy. I'm sure they'll keep the show going. I'm sure they will keep the tradition alive. Okay. All right. Okay, folks. So we get to give you what I think is the final update, hopefully the final update on Chris Smalls vis-a-vis the Freedom Flotilla, at least this trip. Labor leader Chris Smalls out of Israeli prison. That's right. The Israeli military released Amazon labor union founder Chris Smalls early this morning after subjecting him to physical abuse and detaining him for 5 days in an overcrowded prison cell without ventilation or cooling, despite extreme summer heat that drove temperatures close to 100 degrees, according to the legal aid group Adala and the Freedom Flotilla Coalition. Neither the U.S. consulate nor the U.S. embassy officials met with Smalls, though they were notified of his release details in advance, nor did they visit him or other U.S. activists during their detention, despite repeated requests, the organization said. So here is some footage at JFK Airport in New York City from Breakthrough News of the crowd awaiting Chris's arrival.
Chris Smalls is free! From the sea to the river! Palestine will live forever! From the river to the sea! Chris Smalls is free!
And here he is coming out, getting the greeting. Here's Breakthrough News again. Labor organizers. You can see there the ALU t-shirt. And he was able to speak to the media. This is an ABC News, their national channel, so that is great exposure for him and a chance to tell his story of what happened. So here's Chris Smalls going through a sort of condensed timeline from his perspective from when the IDF sieged the flotilla through his time in Israeli detention.
Tell us what happened when your ship was intercepted and how this all started.
Well, thank you for having me, Janae. Well, for one thing, people have to know that the interception is illegal. You know, there's a International Court of Justice who ruled already a year ago that humanitarian aid is allowed to be delivered to the people of Gaza and the people of Palestine. So our attempt to deliver the aid was completely legal when they illegally kidnapped us or intercepted us and took us to Israel against our will. At the moment, you know, once again, the IOF boarded the ship. They confiscated everything from us. They took over the ship. They had us sleep on the deck for about 12 hours until we arrived at the port of Ashad, where we were handed over to immigration authorities. Upon being docked at the port authorities, I was violently attacked as the only African American that was aboard the Handala ship.
And so, Chris, I do want to hit on that because you were the only Black person on board the boat and also the only one to face violence, you say, from the IDF, being choked and kicked by 7 soldiers at once. Tell us a little more about that experience, if you will.
Yeah, once again, my color definitely had a role to play. The discrimination against Black and brown and Palestinian people. I got a glimpse of it myself. It's nothing compared to what Palestinian people go through every day. But once again, I was voicing my concerns, voicing my opinions about what has happened. This illegal siege that Israel has imposed when 7 authorities didn't like the fact that I didn't want to consent to their propaganda. They violently threw me to the ground. They put their knees in my back. They 3 on each side, levitated me, while one of the soldiers, authorities, grabbed my hair, pulled my hair back and my jewelry to use it as a noose to choke me. And as he was choking me, he was yelling, telling me a bunch of racist remarks, saying he's not my brother and telling me to shut up repeatedly, until I was separated from the rest of the volunteers. They kept me isolated in a room. They threw me up against the wall a couple of times. Once again, just subjected to horrific conditions that nobody else had to face. And, I kind of expected that, but I didn't expect it to be that extreme.
Yep, so there it is from his perspective, the retelling of things. Smalls was the only Black member of the 21-person international crew aboard the coalition's boat, the Handala, as it sought to deliver food, medicine, baby formula, and diapers to Gaza, and he was subjected to some of the worst abuse. After 6 days, the Israeli military intercepted the delegation in international waters and took them to Givon prison. His abuse began then, the organizations and eyewitnesses said. Attorneys who met with Smalls, we won't to read that paragraph. He went over that in the video. Attorneys who met with Smalls and other prisoners reported that they were denied basic hygiene supplies and their sleeping areas are infested with bed bugs, Adala said in a statement. With no yard time, they remain confined in closed rooms all day without fresh air or space to move. Smalls was the last person released early Thursday morning, along with Tunisian activist Hatem Aouni, who was received by the Tunisian embassy at the border with Jordan. Both Smalls and Aouni had gone on a hunger strike for all 5 days they were in prison. Attorneys from Adala visited the two and reported that prison guards had been violently raiding and searching their cells on a regular basis. So here's a tweet from Tiago Avila. Our brother Chris Smalls is finally out of prison in Jordan with our support group ready to fly back home. So this was en route back to New York. Welcome back, Habibi. The whole world is proud of you. Free Palestine. Stop the genocide. The silence from the U.S. government about Israel's abuse of Smalls reflects indifference toward anything associated with Palestine, including its own citizens, said Bob Suberi, a 77-year-old U.S. peace activist and dual U.S.-Israeli citizen who was aboard the Handala with Smalls. He noted that Israeli forces have killed multiple American and dual citizens in Palestine over the years. As Zateo pointed out, they've killed at least 6 Americans since October 7th, yet politicians have shown no interest, including AOC when it comes to Chris Smalls. AOC says pamphlets used Chris Smalls for her election campaign. He was kidnapped and tortured by Israel. she forgot he existed. It is funny. I did realize that. I did take note of that because when Mahmoud Khalil arrived at the airport from Louisiana, she was there to greet him for a photo op. Chris Smalls has had some choice words for AOC about her, lack of support for his labor movement, aside from appearing for a photo op while they were rallying. And then she's kind of been silent on the ALU since, and he's called her out repeatedly. He's more post-duopoly oriented. And so I noticed not much in terms of support for Chris Smalls from AOC. No greeting at the airport. It's even more surprising that while the largest labor union in Canada has condemned Smalls' detention, few U.S. unions have spoken out about the situation. Smalls' own Amazon Labor Union, the California Faculty Association, and Sarah Nelson of the Association of Flight Attendants were notable exceptions. They all issued statements, of course. In a Wednesday night vote, 27 Democratic senators among the 44 voting supported blocking the sale of certain weapons to Israel, the first time a majority of the caucus has expressed that sentiment in a vote. The resolution still failed amid unanimous opposition from the Republicans. So Stop Cop City tweets out an interview at JFK with one of the supporters waiting for Chris Smalls. Let's hear from her.
We're all very excited to see him, and we're all very, very proud of him, and we love him very much. So, yeah, I'm overwhelmed, but I'm really, really grateful to be here with all these folks.
Why was the trip that he did so important?
Important that we continue to do these freedom flotillas and that Chris is on this freedom flotillas because we need to show the importance of solidarity between labor, the Black liberation movement, and the Palestinian liberation movement. Without all three of these movements being combined, without all three of these movements being strong and working in an interconnected way, we will not be free. All of our struggles are interconnected. So Chris is a representation of what it means to stand in solidarity, what it means to risk your body, put your body on the line. Because in this climate where we have Bernie Sanders denying genocide, where we have U.S. senators continuously funding genocide, even though we are seeing the political and the intentional starving of Palestinian children, we know how important it is for us to continue to push the conversation and for us to show Palestine that we love them and that we are willing in service of the work to put our bodies on the line to make sure we can give them the aid that they need. Because what is happening right now is being funded by our tax dollars. U.S. mercenaries are on the fucking ground. It's our fucking responsibility to fucking take care of this problem.
Thank you.
And finally, the flotilla plans to continue its efforts regardless of what Israel or America does, Shaprio said, adding that members of civil society are the ones who will halt the genocide. There is no government power, no international power that has got the guts or the willingness to challenge what's going on, or that can challenge the U.S. and Israel. The idea and the point of this is to break the siege. So now all members of the flotilla who were captured have now been released. Chris Smalls, thankfully, is back home safe. And, people ask what the efficacy of doing this is, being that it's, I shouldn't even say unlikely. It's a virtual impossibility to actually penetrate the borders and break the blockade and actually deliver food. The point of doing it is to go on ABC News, which is a national program. That YouTube channel alone has 18 million subscribers. So just the online clip that we showed of Chris Smalls talking about his experience reaches a tremendous amount of people. To get to go on mainstream media and expose Israel for being, in addition to everything else it is, a transparently racist state that is, of course, more hostile to black people than it is to white people. And that is just one more way to communicate just how heinous an entity this is. And of course, you have to take that opportunity. And in this case, Chris Smalls paid for that opportunity with a lot of pain and a lot of, I assume, fear for his own safety and, objectively speaking, great risk to his own safety. If his decision to go on a hunger strike is part of what got him out of there relatively quickly compared to, what could have been had he not. Obviously he went on the hunger strike as a show of solidarity with the starving Palestinians, but perhaps that had something to do with Israel letting him go as soon as they did, because God forbid, the worst happens when he's in custody. I don't think they wanted that to happen. And so if he's refusing to eat, that incentivizes them to let him go sooner. Who knows what could have happened or how long they could have kept them there. Again, that is speculation. I don't know that for sure. That's just something that crossed my mind. But either way, massive respect to Chris Smalls for doing what he did, and we're glad he's home safe.
Yeah, there's been reporting across decades of hostility towards blacks from the Israelis, from denying the right of return to Ugandans, to Ethiopians, dragging their feet on it, making it more difficult for those groups, to sterilizing Ethiopian women without their knowledge. You can look this up. We showed it last time we covered this. For the most part, with the Freedom Flotilla, it looks like they are trying to use it as their own Hasbara to show, look, we are so good to them. We let them go. Right. We don't hurt anybody. And so far, that's what's been keeping them from killing any of these people. I think what happened with Smalls is these IDF soldiers are such just sick, disgusting people that their racism came out in the way they dealt with him. But overall, yeah, why haven't any of these Freedom Flotilla people been killed? I think that's why. Because if you look at how they handle it, that's exactly how they spin it. You see the selfie flotillas. You see everything. Right now, they're really, if you tune into what the Zionists are trying to spread, right now they're trying to claim there's all this aid that the UN just won't bring in. They're spreading around a lot of videos like that. So they are conscious of their public image, and they're very transparent about what their intentions are. Right now with the Freedom Flotillas, that's their intentions. And thank God, because that's why all these people so far have survived.
Yeah, and that's a function of the activism too, and the, changing of the public mind about this. In October of 2023, Israel had majority support. Now they have less than a third support within the United States. It's obviously much worse than that for them around the world, and that changing of public attitude is what incentivizes restraint on their part. They will only do what they feel is in their interest to do. If it's in their interest to terrorize aid workers by making an example of these flotilla activists, by committing the worst against them, they would do it. They would not think twice about doing it. So the reason they're not doing that is because they know it's not in their interest to do it. And the reason it's not in their interest to do it is because they know that the world has turned on them. They don't have the kind of leeway that they're used to having, because while they may have impunity, geopolitically because of their protection, from the United States, they don't any longer have impunity in the public mind. And, there's only so long you can last when the world is as against you as it is. And so they have to be more careful for the time being. And that is, in my opinion, why we haven't heard any horror stories in the news about, people on these ships. What Chris Smalls endured was the worst of it. And as horrible as that was, and as wrong as that was, and as obvious as it is that they singled him out for his race, you look at their history of, to put it frankly, murdering protesters and activists. Things could have been a lot worse. Could have been a lot worse. And they keep sending these flotillas. You don't know, man. Like, it certainly wouldn't surprise anybody. Knock on wood. We hope that doesn't happen. These are all very heroic people on these flotillas. If they blow one of these out of the water, wouldn't surprise me at all. No, that's why we always hold our breath whenever something like this happens. Yeah. And that's why it's such a relief that everybody's back. Brad Gilbert says MAGA became MIGA, now MAGLF. Great leap forward. Thank you, Brad Gilbert. Virtuoso, thanks for the $5. There was an earthquake. I thought I had slight vertigo. Yes, there was an earthquake. A lot of New Yorkers don't know that, apparently. But yes, there was an earthquake in Jersey, and it was felt in the city.
I felt it, and because I experienced them, it felt like that, but I figured I must be wrong.
Huh. Interesting. Yeah, it was 3.0, whatever that is.
Like it felt like the building shifted.
Oh, wow. So that's a noticeable one. I want Candace to come for Trump's wig too. Thanks, Eric Cuso. Appreciate that. Wealthy suck as job creators. That's right, Nina. Appreciate that. The judge says get Benny Johnson as a guest. Yeah. That would be a tough one to book, I think. Indeed. But didn't Juliana Margulies say that Zionists had done so much for blacks? She lied to us. Yep, that's right. That is right. Kemen, sorry to break that news to you, but it appears she did. Luzim Aziri, thanks for the super sticker over on YouTube. Appreciate that very much. Artie Bloody Fartblast says, any chance Small's treatment was a Bezos thing? I doubt it. I think, no. I second what Russ said about, their history of racism and their tendency towards it, and so I think that was most of it there. I think that had a lot to do with it. The only black leader on any of these recent flotillas just so happens to be the one that they grabbed by the neck and said, I'm not your brother. I mean, assuming what he said is true, which I have no reason to doubt it, then yeah, that's pretty obvious. No, they're out of control. They're completely out of control. And in certain situations, they can't help themselves.
Well, in a lot of ways, it seems like, hey, look, man, my grandparents' generation, those people, they carried over a lot of that old European racism. Even though they had it inflicted on them, they carried a lot of the racism typical of Europeans of that era. So now you had people with those prejudices went and started a country with a victimhood complex. And it seems like that was just allowed to get not only frozen in amber in the culture from the people who founded it, but it metastasized because of the conditions of the country itself.
Yeah. Good way to put it. Absolutely. We are up to 750 likes pretty quickly tonight. And
I think it's the technical snafus.
Yeah, that could be it. Yeah. That could be it. Well, Sundays are always the big ones, and it's a big one audience-wise, too. 2937 in the YouTube chat. In the year 2525. And 961 over on Rumble. Please smash that like button wherever you are. It helps out a lot. All right, let's move right on along. All right, we have reached the more comedic part of the program. We got back-to-back zingers for you.
All right. We got to get these crazy kids together. Benny and Billy, they just keep fighting. They just keep going at it. So this is how it started. You might remember this banger from Burr on his morning podcast a few months ago.
Me about this kid who killed this CEO is none of these news programs are talking about the incredible lack of empathy from the general public about this because of how these insurance companies treat people when they are at their most vulnerable, after we've all given them our money every fucking month, and now we finally need you, and all you do is deny us. And then these pussies and all of these things are taking the pictures of their CEOs off their websites. I got to be honest with you, okay? I love that fucking CEOs are fucking afraid right now. You should be. By and large, you're all a bunch of selfish, greedy fucking pieces of shit, and a lot of you are mass murderers. You just don't pull the trigger. That's why it looks clean. That's why these people look, oh my God, he was just, walking into a hotel. It's like, okay, but what was his job? What did he do? What was the results of it?
Yeah, well, Ben Shapiro didn't like the sound of that, along with almost the entire corporate media. So let's see what he had to say. This was back in December.
I'm such a Bill Burr fan that I actually bought a ticket for me and my wife and two of our friends to go see Bill Burr at the Hard Rock Casino down here in Hollywood, Florida. And I have to say, it was one of the worst shows I ever saw in my life. And the reason was he was totally disconnected from the audience. Well, that disconnect has continued. You'll remember that he appeared on Bill Maher's show where he declared solidarity with the pro-Hamas students on campus. And now he is proclaiming that he is very happy that CEOs are walking around in fear for their lives. Okay, now, you do get some extra points for being a comedian in today's day and age, meaning that we'll tend to give you some more leeway to say edgy things because you're trying to be funny. And it's not clear to me here that Bill Burr is attempting to be funny. This is just his actual political opinion. He's not saying anything funny or insightful here. Here is Bill Burr yesterday explaining that he is perfectly fine with CEOs having to live with full-time security because they fear they might be shot because, after all, they're murderers too. I don't believe that Bill Burr holds the same standard for comedians.
Okay. So he kept going on and on about Bill Burr because Bill Burr kept coming out, yelling "Free Luigi," making a lot of the corporate media very uncomfortable. So apparently he didn't even know who he was at the time. This is from Variety in February. Ben Shapiro said Bill Burr is going woke, but Burr responds, all he knew is if he put woke on what he said, he would make more money. I don't know who he is, but that guy is a jerk off. No lies detected. Katie Halper had a great response, actually, to this article. It's helpful that Ben Shapiro described Bill Burr's criticism of CEOs as woke because it reveals how anti-wokeness is weaponized to protect economic inequality. That's why free market fundamentalist think tanks fund people like Chris Rufo. It's class war dressed up as culture war. Thank you, Ben. Exactly. And this is the real problem that they have with Bill Burr, because as we will see, Bill Burr didn't go woke. Bill Burr is still very hated for a lot of his material by the people they would define as woke. What you see with these douchebag dialogues, kind of trigonometry, Douglas Murray people, is they expand the definition of woke out to economic demands. People who are making economic demands, who are criticizing the rapacious looting of the society by CEOs, that's woke. Their job is to get you distracted with culture wars so that you don't fight a class war. So Bill Burr sat down this week for a really interesting interview with Vulture. We're gonna look at a few sections of it, but the Shapiro thing came up pretty early on.
Shapiro talked about going to one of your shows and complaining about you becoming woke, which sort of then created this.
He doesn't even know what that word means.
Let me sum
his definition of woke is white liberals' definition of woke, and they didn't even know what it was. They just took the word from black people. That's the worst thing about our people is not only do we take from other cultures, we don't even take the time to understand the definition.
Yeah.
He went there to be annoyed so he can then have something to talk about, and then he can make money off of dividing his own country.
Yeah.
Those people, it's treasonous what they do.
Yes, but
what I'm finding is that people keep trying to categorize what it is that you're doing. Like that idiot Ben Shapiro. No, he's woke now. He's like, I don't. That fucking guy, someone came to me and goes, hey man, he was trying to bring me into his fold. At one point, the guy liked me.
Yeah.
You know, and then when I didn't, then all of a sudden I'm a fucking asshole. I mean, I'm supposed to look at that guy like he's an adult?
Yes, so that's really the issue. What they wanted from Bill Burr was for him to be their MAGA puppet, right? He's going to be their angry MAGA comedian who just forever is screaming about who's using what bathroom and screaming about Me Too. That's what they wanted him to be. And when he revealed himself not to be their puppet, all of a sudden he's woke. So Ben Shapiro, of course, he did a response to Burr's Vulture interview. All right, so first, we're not going to play his definition of woke. He does not define woke. What he does, he said, I know what woke is, and he goes on for about 2 minutes misdefining woke. he defines it based on what proponents of critical race theory define as their theory of society. That's not a definition of woke. That's a definition of critical theory or a certain perspective of critical theory. Woke, as I understand it, the way that it started and the way that Bill Burr is describing it, it was just being awake to the iniquities in society, being awake to systemic oppression, being awake to the way, basically having been red-pilled. It's the original way of saying red-pilled. You're woke.
Right.
So
to notice injustice in the world.
Exactly. He goes on with academics and theories and books he doesn't like as a definition of woke, which is really not any definition at all. He plays a clip of Bill Burr doing a bit about people claiming Elvis stole his leg shake from black people and saying, what, nobody shook his leg before, to show that Bill Burr has gone woke. All right, so that's where we're picking it up.
Okay, so now Bill Burr would presumably call that Bill Burr insensitive and unresponsive to the needs and definitions of black people. Which all this is amazing, guys, because Bill Burr is whiter than a painting of a polar bear in snow on a white canvas. So he's actually the most annoying form of a woke person. A white lib, the kind he likes to criticize. The white person who apologizes for being white by pretending that he can speak on behalf of black people about the systemic privileges of being white. Oh, yeah, while pulling down millions of dollars to be an angry thumb of a human. So bald Rumpelstiltskin over here, who gets mad when you call him by his real name, is still pissed off. I didn't enjoy his comedy show last year, and he thinks that I and my friends and my wife, we all paid to attend his show just so that I could criticize him. No, here's the thing. On a random weekday night, if I'm going to a comedy show, I'm going because I want to laugh. We paid to attend your show because you used to be funny. And then you transed yourself and turned into a white, bald, allegedly male version of Sonny Hassan on The View, screeching at me about income inequality and racism. There is some irony to the fact that as you lost your nuts, you morphed into a shriveled nutsack of a human. And now you've decided that you're a victim, and that everyone you know is a victim, and that America is cruel and nasty and such, and you're deliberately misunderstood just because you won't put on a great show anymore, which makes me sad, as I enjoyed watching Bill Burr. But now watching you is like watching Robin DiAngelo, but even whiter and even faker and less funny, and with a screechy Boston accent to boot.
Wow, it's amazing this guy didn't make it in Hollywood. He tried making it as a screenwriter.
Yeah.
I don't understand it.
Yeah,
He's so hilarious, this guy.
It's funny that all these failed entertainment guys, Boring, Shapiro, they all have such vitriol for entertainers, almost like they're jealous.
Yes.
So couple of responses here. Hilarious that Bill Burr said Shapiro is going to use his comedy and whatever he says to be annoyed so he has something to talk about on his show to make money off of dividing Americans, which is treasonous. And Benny Boy didn't include that part and immediately did exactly that. Yes, he showed a few clips from this interview, but not that one. Easiest way to dismantle Ben Shapiro is by bringing up Epstein or JFK. Quote, I'm not really that interested. Exactly. Yeah, I mean, Ben Shapiro went ahead and did exactly what Bill Burr described. He went and he jumped on it to create some content. But the function of people like Ben Shapiro's kind of gotten on the wrong side of a lot of his own natural audience because he's such a fanatical Zionist that he has to like defend the JFK Warren Commission report and that kind of thing. But he's a very transparent version of the breed. Katie Halper is exactly right to bring up Chris Rufo. The whole job of these people is to get working people to feel like they won something when they did not win anything that's going to put a nickel in their pocket, and to tell them, you know, all those people who look down on you and your culture and your neighbor and your town. Yeah, those people, those are the ones who think you should have a union. That's their job, right? So Bill Burr, he didn't become a MAGA guy. He attacks both sides. That's not acceptable. That's not acceptable. They wanted him to be this anti-woke warrior for them. He didn't bite. So now he's a lib. Now he's a woke lib.
Yeah, yeah, and you could see the way Shapiro describes, the comedy set as talking about income inequality and how the United States is such this horrible place, right? They want to, and this is where a lot of the manosphere stuff comes in. Not that Ben Shapiro is part of that. I wouldn't insult the manosphere in that way, but it's the same DNA, which is that you're weak if you notice injustice and if you call out injustice.
You're jealous
because the masculine way to handle injustice is simply to bootstrap it and overcome it. And if you try to communicate these injustices with other people and organize to change them, well, then you're woke, you're weak, you're a girly man. I mean, that is basically the subtext of it. Is that anybody who complains about anything is just a whiny little bitch who should work harder. And by work harder, I guess they mean start a podcast and, get followers. Like these people work hard. Like these people would last a day in, on the sales floor of a Costco, right? I mean, these people have no clue what it is to actually work. These are, in Shapiro's case, I mean, he is literally a failed Hollywood screenwriter who was bitter about the fact that he never broke through and found that he could make a living in this alternative media space by claiming that the reason he never sold any screenplays for $500,000 is because he's a conservative and there's anti-conservative bias in Hollywood.
Right.
Meanwhile, the guy is the least interesting, least funny, least compelling person you could ever listen to, and I would bet everything I own that comes through in his writing, whatever his brilliant scripts were.
Oh yeah, I can't even imagine.
Yeah,
I cannot even imagine. You know what? We're willing to pay hard money for a Ben Shapiro screenplay.
For a screenplay, just to read what it is. Yeah.
that could make quite the patron show.
Yes.
Yeah, man. It's because he's not very talented. He's particularly transparent in his intentions. It's just very, very obvious what he's doing. But you watch Ben Shapiro and you watch a lot of the manosphere. Yeah, he's manosphere adjacent, but it's kind of in that same tone. It's kind of manosphere wannabe.
Right.
This can't last. This can't last for the same reason that Trump firing people whose numbers he doesn't like is not going to last, because people know the experience they're having.
Right.
There's only so long they can go before people notice, you know what? Getting the queers out the bathroom didn't make my life any better. God damn it.
Yeah.
They told me it was going to make my life better. I'm just as poor as I was. And you know what? I never actually saw none of those queers in the bathroom.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah.
Sooner or later, people are going to realize their conditions are not improving. And then a lot of these people who were at the forefront of this are going to be the object of these people's hatred.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Come to think of it, I'd like to get sexually assaulted in a bathroom from time to time. Wouldn't be the worst thing in the world.
I used to happen at least once a week. I ain't had my asshole jiggered in a dog's age now. So moving on. He said, speaking of the podcast space, he said a lot of really interesting things about what's happening in that world and online in general. So this, I didn't even catch this at the time. Apparently him and his wife attended that UFC match that Trump triumphantly entered, where he got hugged by Joe Rogan, and his wife gave 2 middle fingers to the camera. They were like right next to Trump. So let's take a look at that. There, you see her back there. One more time. It's kind of quick. You see her back there with Bill Burr.
Oh, yeah, there you go. Look at that. A little flash into the camera.
Little bit. So this was pretty You only need one meltdown because these people are all the same person, basically. Breaking. Bill Burr's career was murdered last night by his wife at a UFC event held at Madison Square Garden. Be on the lookout. if you see this rotten fat bitch, as she is highly toxic and is rumored to have the power of extinguishing a person's manhood. Mr. Burr lost his. R.I.P. Bill Burr, 1968 to 1923. You know, his career seems to still be going pretty strong. Almost like he's not reliant on these chuds for his audience. So he responded a little bit to this meltdown in an interview not too long after.
Those Trump guys, they're always going like, you snowflakes, F your feelings and all of that. And then you make fun of Trump. They're like, oh my God, it's so disrespectful. It's like you're saying F Joe Biden. It's like you can't have it both ways. So that's my thing as a Pats fan, okay?
Yes.
It's just like if you're doing it too, quit your crying. Quit your crying. I mean, you know. How's your wife's hands doing these days? Oh, they're fantastic. I love my wife. You know where you stand with her. Okay? The guy walked in the arena. Everybody cheered. She gave him the finger. Nobody got arrested. That's why this country's great. Everybody expressed themselves. Can we all be adults? I mean, I don't know about you, but I came there to go to the fights. I didn't know I was going to the Republican National Convention.
All right. So he went on. This is right after he was talking about Shapiro. He went on about the kind of racism that him and his wife get online and the way that a lot of the podcast universe feeds a very nasty kind of discourse.
Then it became a thing online where then a certain portion of the right complained about how you're woke.
Racists.
And more racist.
They're racist. Yeah, they send pictures of monkeys to me and my wife. They're fucking horrible people, and they're cowards, and they never say it to your face.
Yeah.
They never do that. And no, they're like, look, dude, there's an ugliness that's out there right now where, you know, there's certain podcasts out there that if you're a racist, if you're an anti-Semite, if you're a psycho-nationalist and you want a softball interview, there's podcasts out there where you can, and they will laugh at your fucking bad jokes and just give you this pass. And it's like, you know, there's a really ugly thing that's going on out there. And, you know, it's the kind of things we've already seen this, and we've seen what it does to a nation. And it's not the way to go. It's not the way to go. All I can say is personally, I would never do it. I would never have somebody come on that's running for fucking president with my intellect. I'm not going to sit there and be like, so like, what's your foreign policy? Like I would be like within 3 minutes, dude, what was your favorite Super Bowl? And then people would be like watching it going, I like that Super Bowl too. I'm going to vote for this guy. It's just like, it's just so far beyond my, my wheelhouse.
All right. So there's a lot to unpack there. Yes, at first, and really Joe Rogan, I would say we could agree, was the trailblazer in the regular guy talks to Neil deGrasse Tyson space, right? He was kind of the trailblazer of that. It was very refreshing at first, I think partly because the journalists were not doing their jobs. Not that they started doing them now, but they kind of ceded ground because people felt like, well, the journalists are spinning everything based on their political bias. They're asking very leading questions. They're framing things in a very particular way. They're clearly doing propaganda. So, hey, I just want to hear a regular guy talk to this person and hear what they have to say without that kind of a filter. And that was really how it started. I think it started with good intentions on the part of the audience. And, you know, I think Joe Rogan, when he started, was doing a better show than he ended up doing later on. Over time, what that has evolved into is people who have no idea what the fuck they're talking about, interviewing people who are very sophisticated in an interview, who are very easily able to manipulate the interviewer in order to frame subjects the way that they want to frame them. And the problem with that is at that point, you're not just, as Rogan would claim, a pothead moron asking questions. What you are is a person with an enormous platform facilitating propaganda for some of the worst people on earth. That is the final product of what you're doing. Now, you want to claim you have no moral responsibility to your audience. You can claim it. I don't buy it. I don't see it that way. I think you do. As somebody who has a much smaller platform, I would never even dream of being that irresponsible about the views I platform and the people I put on the show without pushing back on anything they have to say. I would never dream of having someone like Elon Musk on with no prep, especially if I had hundreds of millions of dollars to pay people to give me 5 pages before I go on with the person. Is that really so much to expect to ask of somebody? It's not saying you got to be an expert in every subject, but you could do some basic due diligence before the interview. So this was kind of a humorous perspective on that. I forgot to look it up. What's the name of this comedian?
Oh, this is Mark Maron, who does the WTF podcast, which is closing soon. But this is his new stand-up special. So we could play the sound from this only because this is on HBO now. But this was fucking great. This was amazing.
If Hitler were alive today, he'd probably appear on Theo Vaughn's podcast.
I'll play the beginning.
I think if Hitler were alive today, he'd probably appear on Theo Vaughn's podcast. And Theo would be like, see, y'all did a lot of meth, right? I mean, all the Nazis were all fucked up on meth, right, Hitler? That shit'll make you crazy, dog. I did some meth once. I was up for 3 days, and then I ate a live bird. No shit, Hitler, a live bird, bro. Hey, Hitler, you probably didn't even hate the Jews. That was just the meth making you crazy, dog. Hey, Hitler. Do you want to apologize to all the Jews right now on my show? No? I get it.
No, he has Theo down. He has Theo Vaughn down so good.
Okay, so yeah.
I get it.
Yeah, so that's a really funny bit. But hey, part of the reason it's funny is there's a lot of truth to it.
Yes.
Theo Vaughn, he seems like a nice enough fella, nothing personal. But when he's sitting down, Nathan Robinson just did an article about this. I didn't use it because Nathan Robinson is such a lib. He's describing Lex Friedman as being on the left in this article, which, I'm just not going to use it. But his overall thesis is correct, that when a guy like Theo Vaughn sits down with a guy like J.D. Vance is shoving him in his side pocket. He's got him coming and going. He doesn't know what to ask J.D. Vance.
Right.
He doesn't know how to challenge him. Like, yeah, he made news. Like, this is why I say, I think he's probably well-intentioned. He brought up Gaza. He brought up starvation. He kind of put J.D. Vance on the spot there. But how much more could say Max Blumenthal? What if you put Max Blumenthal together with J.D. Vance? Now, I'm not saying you have to be at Max's level of expertise. I'm not saying not everyone can be Norm Finkelstein, where they're an academic who's dedicated their lives to this particular subject. But isn't there a pretty wide chasm between Theo Vaughn and Norm Finkelstein that you could occupy as an interviewer, just knowing some basic information before you have someone like that on? Because you're not talking anymore about these shows are a novelty act. These shows are the main act now.
Right.
These shows are having more influence on the conversation than cable news. And I'm not mourning cable news. They brought that on themselves. If they had been doing their job, that lane never would have opened up to the extent that it has. People wouldn't have turned in that direction in such numbers for their news if they hadn't completely discredited themselves. I said this after the election when the takeaway was, yeah, these podcasts have come of age. Now we are the media now. I said, well, so what's our responsibility now for the media? We're the media now. Right. Don't we have a responsibility to do what they used to do that they stopped doing? Like, can we just be like bros? Yeah, dude, come on my show. Like, don't we have a responsibility to try to recreate what they once did, the function, or is it all just the grift? And at that point, if it's all just the grift, you're not any better than what you replaced. You're the same.
Well, they're
You're the same,
defensive.
just a different aesthetic.
Well, yeah, and what's especially kind of sleazy about it is, they will often say when you criticize them for lack of preparation or lack of accuracy, they'll say, "Well, CNN lied about this, this, and this." Okay, but it isn't your job to be better than them.
Right.
Like if you're going to throw stones at them, then isn't the whole premise that you can be better than them, not that you be just as bad as them, and then when you get called out for that, you deflect, well, they suck too. Okay, well, if they suck too, then what you're basically saying is it's dealer's choice. Pick your poison, right? You can watch shit online or you can watch shit on your TV. That is not an attractive option, I don't think, choice rather, to offer people. I think you have to do quite a bit better than that. And as far as Theo Von goes, yeah, I mean, when he told J.D. Vance it feels like a genocide, J.D. Vance said, I don't think it's a genocide. And I remember, because we covered this on Jimmy's show, to that, Theo Von gave a very aw shucks kind of reply, very similar to what. That's why that line was so funny. Oh, do you want to apologize to the Jews? No, I get it. Because that was like similar to the response he gave Vance. Oh, okay, you don't think it's all right? Well, all right.
And this is
your perspective is important. Something like, I forget exactly what he said, but it was very much like that. Oh, never mind, man.
And this is why they love to go on these shows.
Right.
This is the dream. Yeah. Politicians and business people have wanted this forever, that they could just go talk to adoring, ignorant interviewers who don't even know enough to ask a question.
Right. Exactly.
So case in point, Bassem Youssef just cooked the Nelk boys. They act ignorant, but I find it hard to believe they didn't know what they were doing bringing Benjamin Netanyahu on their podcast. So for anyone who doesn't know, they brought Netanyahu on and asked him questions like, what's your favorite order at McDonald's? And, hey, we hear there's starvation in Gaza. He said it's not true. Okay. Okay then. They admitted later they asked him questions that they were given in advance to ask him. So here's Bassem Youssef calling them out to their faces on it.
We should have grilled him 50,000, 100,000 times harder, but something we can't get back, and we'll probably always
Of course, but I know you can't get back this trip in Israel, but I'm just telling you, this was like part of a much bigger propaganda effort, right? And a country that spends $150 million on its image, they are covering something. They when they spread all of this propaganda, it's like, we're not starving people in Gaza. You understand that this conversation has been happening for 2 years. First of all, I'm not absolving you from your trip. You guys are not little kids. You are fucking 30 years old, right? People in your age have families and they have a career, and you need to stop. I'm just saying this because you're my little brothers, but you're not little, right? You need to stop infantilizing yourself. It's like, we're just stupid people doing stupid stuff. You're 30 years old and you need to be aware of what's happening in the world, and that your reach and your platforms mean something and it affects people. And I think the biggest reason why people were so upset for you, not because you brought someone and you didn't contest him, that it is the talking point that he used is the same talking points that have been used for 2 years to kill thousands of people, right? So, I mean, and part of the reason why people were so angry is that, forget, even if you don't know anything about the conflict, there was like a total lack of critical thinking.
Yeah. Exactly. Like, why the hell are these guys interviewing Benjamin Netanyahu? Why? And he was, he tried to be nice. You're my little brothers, but hey, man, he made a very important point. This is not a joke when you've got millions of people watching you to go put a murderous, genocidal war criminal on your show and ask him what he likes at fucking McDonald's. That's not funny. It's not funny. That's not funny to the people starving to death. And they Look, to their credit, or under pressure from their own audience, because apparently they got savaged by their audience. They did admit that they got handed these questions and they said we didn't do the research we should have done. But again, that raises the question. All right, we're the media now. Well, then maybe we need to up our game as people in this space. Case in point, the guy who started it all, Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan, Silicon Valley's favorite orifice. There's Elon. Here's him blowing Elon, not asking him a hard question. Here he is blowing Trump, giving him a big hug at that same UFC fight that Bill Burr's wife gave the middle finger to the cameras at. And this one, hey, man, I cannot emphasize this enough, because you want to see the real world consequences of a guy like Joe Rogan not taking any responsibility whatsoever for who he puts on the air, what he lets them say, and doing even just the barest amount of preparation before he lets them on. Here once again is Mark Andreessen just lying out his ass about the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, while Joe Rogan very credulously gasps. Now, how are your listeners going to hear that? Well, he must be telling the truth. Look, Joe Rogan's shocked at what he's hearing, right? That's how they're going to hear it.
Right. With this thing called the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau, CFPB, which was it's sort of Elizabeth Warren's personal agency that she gets to control. And it's an independent agency that just gets to run and do whatever it wants.
Not true. She founded the agency. Do you know why you haven't heard about Elizabeth Warren getting fired from the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau? Is that like the first thing Trump would do? Because she wasn't involved in it at the point where he's giving this interview. If Joe Rogan had just had some interns prepare 5 pages of background for him, he would have known that. But he's too lazy to do that.
Right. And if you read the Constitution, like, there is no such thing as an independent agency. And yet there it is.
What does her agency do?
Whatever she wants.
There's no such thing as a corporation in the Constitution. And Mark Andreessen has several.
What does it do, though?
Basically, it terrorize financial institutions, prevent fintech, prevent new competition, new startups that want to compete with the big banks.
Really?
Oh, yeah, 100%.
How so?
Just by terrorizing anybody who tries to do anything new in financial services.
Can you give me an example?
By new, he means rob people without consequence. He literally started one of these dodgy fintech companies and lost old ladies their life savings, their retirement, everything. With the money he has, he could have made them whole. He didn't.
Banking. This is where a lot of the debanking comes from, is these agencies. So debanking is when you as either a person or your company are literally kicked out of the banking system.
Like they did to Kanye.
Exactly, like they did to Kanye. My partner Ben's father has.
The CFPB defended a conservative Christian group because they got debanked. They actually went to court on behalf of the conservative Christian group.
Been debanked.
Really?
We had an employee who
for what?
For having the wrong politics, for saying unacceptable things. Under current banking regulations,
Okay, so that's enough of that. So what are the actual real life consequences of that? House passes budget package that slashes CFPB budget by 70%. Now, these goons like Andreessen that run Trump wanted that. So I'm not saying it wouldn't have happened anyway. It didn't help that Joe Rogan gave a soapy hand job to Mark Andreessen, so much so that the next day X was flooded with people screaming about the CFPB and how it was oppressing them and how it had to be taken down. Trump knows he's not going to face any consequences from his base because Joe Rogan, the way his audience would hear it, gave the seal of approval to what this fucking criminal said on his show without any challenge. What did the CFPB actually do for people? Provided $19.7 billion in consumer relief. Awarded $5 billion in civil money penalties. They're the ones, when Wells Fargo opened up all those fake accounts, the CFPB are the ones that fined them, held them accountable, and made those people financially whole. Here's somebody who benefited from the CFPB. I'll miss the CFPB. For 5 years, I was harassed by a debt collection agency for a debt I never owed. I told them I bought a fraudulent debt that never existed, but they still pursued me for it. They even unilaterally dinged my credit score 40 points. So why would a guy who likes to set up dodgy fintech products that blow up in the faces of the people who put their money into them, like Mark Andreessen, want to get rid of the CFPB? Because he doesn't want to be held accountable. These people are libertarian fanatics because libertarianism benefits them because they're already rich. That's who that benefits. If you're already rich, it's great. No regulations, no handcuffs. You can do anything. These people are so greedy. They have more money than anyone could spend in 10 lifetimes. It's not enough. It's not enough. They want to extract every last drop of blood from the public, and anything that gets in their way, even slightly like the CFPB, is an enemy. This is the consequence of being the media. We're the media now, and handling it that way. And if you're going to say, I'm the media now, if you're going to brag about that, I'm the media now, well, now I'm a pothead comedian asking questions. That doesn't wash anymore. That doesn't wash. You're doing real fucking damage to real fucking people. Joe Rogan, because he has the biggest platform, is a very obvious and I think particularly egregious example of it. But that's true across the board. All right, Theo Von, yeah, man, seems like a nice enough guy. So does Rogan, for that matter. I just think that he's using sophistry to avoid responsibility that he doesn't want to take, because he knows if he gives a hard interview to these people, they're going to be after him. They're going to be fucking mad at him. He doesn't want them mad at him. I don't know what consequences come with these people being mad at you. I imagine it's not pretty. Theo Von, he's making a lot of money, man. All right, he doesn't seem like the sharpest knife in the drawer, but he could hire a staff to prepare him when he does these interviews. I'm not saying all these people have to stop interviewing politicians, but yo, man, if you say you're the fucking media now, act like it in a good way.
Well, yeah, I mean, when you look at Rogan, I feel like the appeal of his show, especially, in the early days, to the audience is that Rogan kind of joins the audience in the audience, and we give the floor to this interesting person who's going to tell us a bunch of shit that we didn't know about before. And so we get to kind of intellectually masturbate by, being showered with all of this knowledge from this person that Joe brings to us. But when you get in the realm of politics, it's different because politicians have an agenda that they're bringing you. It's not like bringing on Neil deGrasse Tyson and asking him about science, or bringing on, some health guy and asking about health. Like when a candidate for office comes to you, they're coming to spread a certain message with a certain slant. Obviously, this is as basic as it gets, as fundamental as it gets. And yeah, same thing goes to a guy like Theo Von. As for these Nelk boys, it is just completely sociopathic. I'm sorry, in this context at this time, just bring on Netanyahu and accept a list of questions. Like, do you have no awareness of the world around you at all? That's what Bassem Youssef says. It is a sociopathic lack
You're
of
30
concern
years old
for the consequence of what you're doing. Like, our platform, we've been very fortunate and we're very blessed to have as big a platform as we do. It's still small compared to a guy like Rogan or Theo Von or even these Nelk boys. When all's said and done, about 50,000 people will have watched this live stream between all the platforms and the audio and this and that. And for that reason, I still don't feel comfortable really getting too into like health issues. That's part of why I don't talk about health much, because I just personally, this is my choice, I don't feel confident enough in those issues to say something that then affects what someone decides to do with their body in terms of medicine or even nutrition or any other practice. I'm not saying nobody should do that. There are people who are very, very passionate about it and who do feel confident about it. That's their choice. They certainly should not be censored or prevented from talking about it. But just for me personally, I don't want someone to listen to my health advice and do something that ends up hurting them if I'm wrong. I just don't feel confident in that way. So that's part of why I don't cover it that much. So as someone who reaches about 50,000 people per show, I have the awareness to know, okay, if
Right.
this isn't your strength, if this isn't your area of expertise, then just don't talk about it, because you don't want to go off half-cocked and give someone the wrong idea that they go and then they do something that hurts themselves with it, right? So that's me reaching 50,000 people a show. You're Joe Rogan. You have a mega viral interview with Donald Trump, who's up for election in, what was it, 4 or 5 days?
Right.
That doesn't occur to you? These Nelk boys, you're
Right.
interviewing Netanyahu
Right.
amidst a genocide, and that
Right.
does not occur to you? What is wrong with you that does not occur to you?
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I think you cannot, as all these people are doing, be running around crowing, I'm the media.
Right.
And then say, well, I don't really know about that, but I decided to platform Netanyahu anyway.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Just crazy.
If you
Just
didn't know
crazy
about
stuff.
it, why'd you put him on?
Yeah. Why'd you put him on then? Exactly. Exactly. All right. You have one more piece, right?
Yep.
All right, let
Do
me
you
just
wanna
read a
do
few
super chats
Yeah, let
first?
me read a
Yeah,
few
yeah.
chats before we go, because they're queuing up here. Steve Polychronopoulos, thanks for the $5 over on YouTube, says, "Damn it, guys, I had to put down my Great Dane Baloo on Friday. Oh, that's terrible. It's been a terrible weekend. Thanks for taking my mind elsewhere for a few hours. Well,
I'm
much love to
sorry to
you,
hear that.
Steve. Hearts in the chat for Steve. Yeah, that's terrible. Losing a pet it's horrible. It's the worst. And Great Danes are
That's what George Carlin say. It's like you're buying a small tragedy.
That's what it is. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And Great Danes are awesome dogs. Great Danes are phenomenal dogs. So shout out to Baloo. Hearts in the chat for Baloo, everybody. Pasel thanks for the $2. Appreciate that. Pasel says, again, love you guys. By the way, Chris will be able to sue. Well, that's good. I hope he does. Paul Chu says, a member for 25 months. Look at that, over 2 years being a YouTube member for Paul Chu. Says, Free Palestine from Sydney, Australia. Artie Blarty Fartblast says, free EEE Lou EEEGEE. Ah, God, a good one. Remember, Luigi didn't do anything. So the truth will come out. Racecar789, thanks for the $20. Russell's lighting is fine, but Keaton has that nice diffuse lighting that comes from all directions. That's the good stuff, but it's difficult to pull off. Honestly, whatever lighting I've pulled off is by accident. I kind of want to put a darker backdrop back here.
You haven't been to that house.
Yeah,
He didn't do shit.
Yeah, no. You see what this is here? This is a dog cage. This is a dog crate. Because my dog has anxiety. So when no people are in the house, which is very rare now because we have a baby, so one of us is almost always home. But when no one's in the house, she gets very anxious if she's just left to roam around the living space. She likes to be in a contained environment. So we still have a dog crate for her. So that's what this is over here. And then right over here is a wall. So I've done really very minimal set design. And I want to do a little more to get the lighting a little better. But thank you. I'm glad you like it so far. Noah Linden, thanks to the $2. Bootstrapping equals boot licking. Thank you for that, Noah. Appreciate that. Let's see here. Goo81 says, speaking of racist, Smotrich said today that international law does not apply to Jews. That is what separates the chosen people from the others. Not a surprising statement.
Did he really say that?
That's crazy. Wow. Can only rumble for a minute today. Still enough time to say, Uncle Sam, please quit sending your taxes to Uncle Shlomo just so he could kill babies in Gaza. Free Palestine. Thank you, Ken Texican. It's an earthquake every night in Russ's bedroom. Bazoom. Just kidding. Thanks, Kim and G. Appreciate that very much. Well, that's why he's on the top floor, so that the people, there's nobody over him. Right?
Yeah.
Professor Brown notes, is forced to watch a Ben Shapiro clip. Another renowned philosopher, Andrew Dice Clay, comes to mind. Like masturbating with a cheese grinder. Slightly amusing, but mostly painful. Thank you, Professor Brown. No, appreciate that. All right, let's move on to part 3 of Bill Burr.
All right, so putting the lie to any claim that Bill Burr is woke or he's like Sonny Hostin, he went on to articulate the post-duopoly point of view far better than we have done in this 36 months or so of podcasting.
So I don't want to hear left and right crap. They're all fucking nuts. That fucking shit post Me Too, where it went from people shouldn't sexually assault people, absolutely, to I don't like what you're talking about in your act, was fucking nuts. It was McCarthyism on the left. And now you've gone to the other side on the right. And the left was so fucked up, the right, the psycho right thinks that they're in the middle, and they're not. They're out of their fucking minds. And I travel, dude, And I'm telling you, people who lean right and lean left are chill. And we're just sitting in the middle like, when is everybody going to fucking calm the fuck down? Stand up, if I start trashing like Trump, I would hear the left in the crowd like, yeah. And I'd be like, the fuck, you voted for a guy that, is staring off into space. Mm-hmm. Like your guy literally should be in a fucking home. What are you patting yourself on the back for? X, Y, and Z, blah, blah. Your fucking party has not let you has not let you choose your candidate since Obama's second term.
Yeah.
You're liberal? That's fucking insane. We want Bernie Sanders. Fuck you, Hillary. We want Bernie Sanders. Fuck you, fucking Mr. Magoo. Mr. Magoo again, fucking 2 weeks before. Oh, yeah, his vice president. Yeah. That's what they're doing. So, so then after I've trashed Trump, I then do that because my thing is like, I'm not flying either one of their flags. It's the people that pay them. Mm-hmm. That is the problem. And they're always distracting us with other stuff. So, like, CNN and Fox News are a fucking disease. So my new perspective is there's nothing wrong with being a billionaire. But if somebody is working 40 hours a week, 160 hours a month, and they can't make their rent, you're not paying them enough money. Maybe you should just be worth $900 million.
Yeah.
Like, how does a CEO take a fucking 8-figure bonus and none of your employees have dental insurance? They can't even go out and get a filling.
So this is really the issue that the partisans have with him. He's speaking not only good sense, he's speaking in terms that most people can relate to, because he's absolutely right. I've been to several of Jimmy's shows now. That's a great opportunity to see the difference between who people are in real life and who you see online. Man, you got all kinds there. I just saw his show up in Buffalo. Buffalo's a very working class town. Jimmy was working the crowd. He was asking people what they did. Everyone was like welder, plumber,
right,
air conditioned maintenance, literally everyone. Jimmy commented on it. He was like, wow, this really is a blue collar town. Like everybody had a job like that. And yeah, man, Jimmy is, talking a lot of left economics. Some people in that room identified as MAGA, but it's always like that at his shows. You have a pretty good mix of people. And that's my experience whenever you go to these kinds of political events on the ground. Now, of course, this is a selective sample because, honestly, I'm not even making a joke. You're talking about people healthy enough to, put on some clothes, walk out of their house, and go to a show or go to a protest or go to an event. A lot of the people driving the conversation, when you think about it, it's kind of like evolution inverted. The unhealthiest animals in society have an advantage in the online world because they have a lot of time to put into it and are willing to put that kind of time into it. Healthier people are not going to sit there all day like this. So if you move the center of discourse to that world, your whole discourse winds up being defined by very sick people and people who make a living manipulating the clicks and eyeballs of very sick people. And it just encourages the most deranged discourse around the most deranged premises on all sides. And what Burr's pointing out there, he's absolutely right. That's not most people, man. Whether they're left, whether they're right, most people don't think like this. This is why a guy like Bill Burr is such a threat to people like Ben Shapiro, because he's speaking sense. He's speaking what most people would hear as good sense. A pox on both their houses, and it's not even about red and blue tie. It's about the people who fund them. They don't want you talking like that, man, because that's their whole grift. That their whole living depends on you thinking that one of these two teams is going to come save you. The idea that the whole system is corrupt and stacked against you, and you're going to have to overthrow this system, that's exactly what they're there to prevent. That is exactly the job of people like Ben Shapiro and many, many others we could name. Their job is to keep you from revolting. They can't have very likable, funny, sensible guys like Bill Burr with such a huge platform because it raises questions that their whole job is to keep you from asking.
Yeah, exactly. And in 2024, I think we hit this kind of bizarre tipping point where so many people became convinced, because the online media kind of took over the legacy media. We all kind of became convinced that things were less chill than they were. I mean, it rings so true when he says, like, most people are just chill. There's really no culture war raging in real life. It's all online. None of it happened in real life. This was a funny story. This was when the Target boycotts were happening, and you were pitching me the Target story because we did a story about the dick tucking thing. So you send me material on the dick tucking pajamas or whatever the fuck. Literally, when you pitched me that story, no lie, I've told you this before, and I think I've mentioned this on the show before, but a long time ago. I was literally in a Target parking lot, having just been in Target shopping for clothes for my toddler. So, like, this story was like literally, I had just lived this, right? And I'm reading this. I'm like, okay, what is this? I was just in Target buying clothes for my kids in the kids section. I didn't see no dick tucking pajamas, any flaps or straps or buttons or this or that. Like, what the fuck is this?
Hang on,
this
but
is
they
not...
had that. Yeah, but they had the Red Sox onesies.
They had the Red Sox. I did the spoof on the Red Sox thing. Yeah, exactly. That was our first like YouTube short that did all right. But I'm like, what the fuck is this? This does not at all relate to what just happened. I was literally just in Target doing clothes shopping for kids. And I'm not saying that stuff doesn't exist. I'm just saying it gets magnified online to the point where people become convinced that they're living in a constant state of siege, right? That they're under attack from the world around them by the other side that's trying to impose their way of life on them. And in most cases, in almost all cases, it's not true. Almost all cases, you go into a Target, it's people fucking shopping for shit they need, and that's it. Like, this stuff just gets so amplified online. And in 2024, it hit a tipping point where, yes, the online media became the real media, and I think people got very, very invested in these very divisive issues that ultimately have very little effect on anyone's lives, right? And the same thing happened like in 2004 when they made that election about gay marriage, and here you had a lot of people in the aftermath of this election say they voted because of trans sports. Yeah, that is the purpose of those issues. And the online space is designed to amplify those issues to the exclusion of what actually affects people, which is, hey, how much money is your boss paying you to work, right? That's ultimately the most important thing, and that gets no attention ever. And then people vote in these politicians, and then they get surprised when they get fucked over, whether it's the Democrats promising they're going to do something that they don't do, or the Republicans promising not to do something that they do, like cutting Medicaid, right? Democrats say they're going to deliver economic change and don't. Republicans promise not to make shit worse, and they do. Right? That's the difference of the parties, and people are caught blindsided every time because they get distracted.
Yeah, I might actually do it this week only because this angle is getting interesting to me. I have long concluded that it's a psyop, man. Like, yes, it's mostly online, but then it does spill over into real life because they needed to. They needed to so that people fight about things like this.
Right.
Yes, they really were insisting that trans women compete against women, and that some still do, but most of them realize this is not a hill worth dying on at this point, and it's kind of dying out. But yeah, I do. I think intelligence services are behind it. I don't believe organically people just woke up one day and decided that was a good idea. I think to the extent that anyone did think that's a good idea or does think that's a good idea, I think they've been manipulated into believing that this is a pressing issue. But then it does spill over into real life. Not in most places, not in most towns you're going to live in. Usually this is happening in like very blue areas where something like that would be, like those Target displays. I would imagine we're generally not in Abilene, right? Like that would be my guess. That's my theory. I might want to do the Sydney Sweeney thing this week because the way that American Eagle has responded confirms what I said to you offline. They were triggering conservatives because they thought that was good for business. That's why but they never gave a shit about any of this. That was all clear. That's why they'd have Dylan Mulvaney selling Bud Light, right? It's to trigger the conservatives because they think that's going to make more liberals buy their beer. And that's the market, lucrative market that they want. Now that things have flipped in the other direction, you got the same exact thing, only from the other angle. Like American Eagle, my theory as soon as this blew up was, that was the point. That was the point, and it worked. Like American Eagle stock is up. They sold out those jeans. It's exactly the same thing. It's exactly the same reason they had Dylan Mulvaney selling Bud Light. It's the same reason they have Sydney Sweeney in an ad where they're talking about her good jeans. They knew it was going to trigger the libs, and they have decided that's good for business now. Right. So now they're going to do the culture war from the other side.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. We should start selling jeans on this show. We should start hawking jeans.
We should. Yeah. Hey, man, you got 3 kids. You got good jeans.
That's true. I have good jeans.
Sell that.
Too. Yes. Exactly.
They're all healthy.
Yeah, exactly. Comrade Black Pill, thanks for the $4.99, says woke DEI ideology was fully deployed in the wake of the Occupy movement. The establishment will do anything to subvert class consciousness in the U.S. Yeah, that's a good observation, and that seems to be true. Tupac Amaru, thanks for the $9.99 super sticker. Appreciate that very much. Baby Ethernet, thanks for the $2, says Shapiro himself is a glorified talking nutsack. Thank you, Baby Ethernet. Chris Shipley says stack sats against the machine. Salamander Fry, hey, you guys are all right. You're all right too, Salamander Fry. Cats are people too, says became a YouTube member, so thank you for that. Appreciate that very much. Artie Barty Fart Blast says, sorry, Bill, you don't have to be a genius to say no more bombs. That's right. David Santucci, Bassem Youssef, now go to your room and think about what you've done. Exactly. Yes, he laid down the law. Fat Not So Fat says, Nelk Boys interviewing Heinrich Himmler. What do you eat for breakfast? Yeah. There you go. Furrow Squeen says, not to complain or anything, probably a copyright avoidance thing, but is it necessary to play Ben Shapiro on 5 times speed? It's very off-putting. P.S. What Bill Burr said about cyclists was spot on. Yeah, no, that was Ben Shapiro, normal speed there. Normal speed. Thank you for that. Eric Rousseau, DEI, Jesus Christ is Queen. Thank you, Eric Rousseau. Stoop Sign says, my favorite heavily gay patisserie is the only place around with gendered bathrooms because no one wants to walk in on some gay shit. Thank you, Stoop Sign. EO Shush says, corporate left weaponized woke to distract from economic issues. Shapiro and the Rogan sphere gained massive popularity. Countering it, woke is dead now and they don't know what to do. That's right. Vito P for $50. Let's have a cowbell for Vito P. Thank you, Vito. Appreciate that very much. In spite of a few tech glitches here and there, this show remains the effing cool kids club. Cancer sucks, you guys, and a girl rock. Thank you, Vito. Appreciate that very much. Thank you for that generous donation. Appreciate you. I don't go to comedians for political info, says David Wolf. But when a comedian has a political figure on their platform, they have a responsibility to have a minimum political understanding and take it seriously. Exactly. Yep. Well said. Eric Rousseau says, still no Whitney Webb on Rogan. That is true.
And you're never going to see that.
No, will not see that. I do not think. Okay. McDougal over on YouTube says, long time no see, fellas. Yes, it is long time no see, McDougal. I remember you now. Just wanted to check in. Trump is cooked. Tucker miscalculated going after Nick, and America first is inevitable. That's right, McDougal. You're the MAGA guy who's, I guess, not MAGA anymore. Trump is cooked. Well, congratulations, McDougal. Appreciate that. And yes, it is long time no see. We haven't had a super chat from McDougal in a long, long time. I almost forgot who you were. You rang a bell, and then I'm like, yeah, no, it is a long time no see. All righty. Well, that's a good super chat to lead us into this next segment here. Tucker and Fuentes are next. But before we do that, going to take a quick break to hear from our friend John Koa, who is one of our dissident sponsors. John Koa has a new single out. It's called Just a Little Off the Rails. This is the latest preview from his upcoming album, and its backstory is truly unique. The rhythm track for Just a Little Off the Rails come from a collection of John's live acoustic performances recorded between 2017 and 2020. He'd planned to release them as is, but like many of us, he felt the world's current state, the very issues we talk about on this show, made it the wrong time for a celebratory release. So he took that time to continue recording, and his new album is called A to Z. It's 34 tracks, a mix of originals and covers. Just a Little Off the Rails is the first single. It's an autobiographical song featuring acoustic guitar, vocals, bass, and slide. It's a great tune. We play it sometimes when we switch over to Rumble for content. And so go give it a listen. DoDissidents.com/Koa. That's a link to all of his socials, including his Spotify page. So please do go and check that out and support our dissident artist supporters. All right, folks. So with that comes our next segment. All right, folks. So a little bit of MAGA drama to cover here. This is a fun one. With personalities like this, how could it not be a fun one? So Tucker Carlson recently hosted Candace Owens on his podcast. And just to set this up a little bit, Nick Fuentes' name comes up. So Candace recently had Fuentes on her podcast. Now, she never posted that to YouTube. I'm assuming that's because Nick Fuentes is banned on YouTube, so she's probably not allowed to post that on YouTube. There's different rules about certain people when they're banned. Like when Alex Jones got banned, first you could have him on as a guest, but he couldn't be hosting anything, and then he couldn't be hosting anything, and then they couldn't have him on as a guest, whatever the order was. I'm not sure, but I'm assuming she kept that interview off of YouTube for that reason. On the interview, some of the clips are surfacing on X. Nick Fuentes became very offended when she asked him why he did not have a wife and or children yet, and started getting pretty hostile about how she, as a woman, shouldn't be lecturing him in that way. So she recounts that here just to set this up, and then they start slinging shit at Nick Fuentes. So let's take a look at this.
I did. Or had a conversation with him.
Sorry.
You just interviewed Nick Fuentes. I did. Or had a conversation with him. What did you think of that? What do you think of him? I mean, I can tell you my experience was entirely fraudulent with him. I never interview people as a gotcha interview. It's always just that he was making the rounds. He's been around for a while, and kind of his story, when I learned it, because he was banned from everywhere, so I didn't actually know what the backstory was with Nick Fuentes, but then I learned it when he was allowed back on X, and Jeremy Boring, who was then the CEO of Daily Wire, did this X live with him. And Jeremy Boring did an event with Nick Fuentes? It was weird. Everything was weird about what happened, but it happened, and he told his story. He did all of that, and apparently then, and I don't know if it was driven by insecurity. He didn't know how his followers would take the interview, but he just did a complete 180, lied to his audience, pretended that he was surprised it was behind a paywall. We spoke about him and how we were going to release it. He said, great. I mean, it's a total 180 flip. So I can now say that I didn't listen to other people say that Nick was a bad person. I didn't care about what happened when he was 18, 19, 20, 26. I sat across from a person, had a conversation with him. He behaved one way in person and then put on a show for the internet. So I actually can say my experience with Nick Fuentes is that he's a terrible person and a terrible human being, because why would you do that? There's no reason to do that. I agree. You could have come back onto the show. You could have had beginning of us discussing various topics. I think in many ways, whatever happened to him when he was 18 may have stunted his growth, meaning that he now is responding to the internet, which is filled with people that don't even use their real names. Right? So really, truly, the irony of it all is you could just be like the IDF soldiers just pretending to be his supporters and just getting it.
See, kind of going a little negative on the crowd here. They slipped up in this way. That was the first example of it. Talking about the internet is full of people who don't use their real names, laughing at people, kind of forgetting you guys make your living online. And Fuentes actually brings this up later. Like, you're kind of taking shots at the very people who you pander to for money and who you rely on for ad revenue and membership dollars and things like that. That's called going negative on the crowd. They didn't do it on purpose, but they kind of let that slip a little bit.
Him to say whatever you want because he's going to do whatever you say, but it was strange. It was totally strange. It made no sense. And Does he have a family or a normal life? I asked him about that. He said, yeah, it comes from a 2-parent household. That's what he told me.
No, does he have his own family? Does he?
No, he's not married. And I just offered to him, I was like, I think these are things that you learn when you're married. And he just was vicious about it. And,
about
women
what?
don't tell me what to do or whatever it was. And it was very performative. Like I said the exact same thing to Andrew Tate months earlier. had him and I said, you should get married. Here's why. And of course, Andrew Tate did not react like that. He told me what his hangups were about marriage. It was just a part of two people communicating on a show. But for whatever reason, like he saw this as like an attack.
Okay, so that's kind of the intro, sets things up. Now, just to be clear, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a couple questions. All right, so she did this interview. She's describing what happened in the interview?
Yeah, in the interview.
Okay.
In the interview, where, he kind of turned on her for, pressing him as to why he didn't have a family. And he claims it's because he really is not set up for a family, because he's been so canceled and so debanked and deplatformed, and he's just a very controversial person. And this is what I want to just kind of get out of the way here. He is, as many people in the chat are saying, he does consider the United States, a white country, but then denies he's a white supremacist, saying that's an anti-white slur. He has questioned the numbers about the Holocaust and has been called a Holocaust denier. He denies that he is a Holocaust denier, though he obviously dabbles in that. He was obviously, he was at that Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville in 2017, which may be what they're talking about when they say what happened to him when he was 18, because I believe he's 26 now, so the math kind of works out that is about at that time. So, yeah, look, I mean, none of this is an endorsement of Nick Fuentes. This ultimately kind of adds up to scumbag on scumbag violence, which is fun to comment on, but it does expose, I think, some meaningful rifts in the space. And Tucker, I gotta say, does not come out of this looking all that great. And so with that, let's continue on, because now Tucker starts insinuating that essentially Nick Fuentes is an op meant to discredit the more serious right-wing commentariat.
I judge people according to my experiences with them, and so Nick is being judged according to my experience with him. And
but like, what is this?
I don't get it.
Where does the funding come from? I probably shouldn't even say this, but the only reason I know who he is because someone sent me a video a few years ago of him attacking me, and I was like, so I'm looking at this, and I'm like, well, first of all, this kid's really talented, like legit, and I can assess that just having done the job for so long. So I was like, wow, lots of talent, native talent, and he's attacking my dad as a CIA, his dad's in the CIA or whatever, and I'm like, well, that's untrue. Then my father dies, and I learn actually, was involved in that world. I was completely shocked by it. So no one has to believe me, but that's just a fact.
Right.
This was in March of this year. I'm like, well, how the hell would this child from Chicago? My dad was 84 when he passed. Like, who's this guy know who my dad is? And like, he's in intelligence. How would he know that?
Okay, so there, Tucker claims that he only learned of his dad's involvement with the CIA upon his passing in March of this year, 2025. Well, Fuentes was all over this, so Fuentes pulls the receipt here. Here's video dated June of 2024 of Tucker Carlson admitting that his dad was CIA connected.
Hey, and I've taken a lot of crap, including from Putin. And so when I applied to CIA, and I've taken a lot of crap, including from Putin, like, oh, you're from a CIA family. Well, yeah, obviously my father worked in conjunction with CIA. I mean, that's what that is. And I tried to join the CIA, but I'm not being false about it.
Okay, well, kind of being false about it now, because then he pulls the receipt playing what we just saw.
Native talent. And he's attacking my dad as a CIA, his dad's in the CIA or whatever. And I'm like, well, that's untrue. And my father dies, and I learn actually, was involved in that world. I was completely shocked by it. So no one has to believe me, but that's just a fact.
Right.
Okay. Well, I mean, apparently that's not just a fact. And this made me think of this piece of video that went kind of viral a few years ago. It made the rounds again in light of what we just saw. But here is Tucker admitting to Dave Rubin that, he will lie if cornered.
At this point, when they just lie again and again, and we have the internet to expose the lies. If this isn't 20 years ago when you were on CNN, and we couldn't expose things. We can expose it now, and they still do it.
Well, I guess I would ask myself, I lie. If I'm really cornered or something, I lie. I really try not to.
Okay, well, that is an interesting admission. Yes, I mean, that makes this last thing kind of make a lot more sense, because it sure seems that Tucker just flat out lied to Candace Owens there when he said he didn't know his father was CIA until 2025. I mean, you're on video basically saying that 1 year ago in 2024. All right. So this kind of gets worse for Tucker as it goes along. Let's take a little bit closer look here.
Anyway, like, who is this kid exactly? And maybe it's just an accident that the guy exclusively goes after people who are in the same, roughly the same. And then he gets up there and he's like, making Holocaust jokes. And it's like, is it possible that this is like David Duke? David Duke, every time I had a new show, David Duke would endorse my show. I don't know, who the hell is David Duke? Well, David Duke is obviously part of a campaign to discredit people on the right, obviously. And I think it's very obvious that Nick Fuentes is exactly the same. Doesn't mean everything he says is false. It doesn't mean he's not talented. He's enormously talented. Doesn't mean he's a bad person. I'm not attacking him personally, but he is clearly part of a campaign to discredit non-crazy right voices. That's obvious to me. I've been around a long time. I know it when I see it.
Yeah, and I will say I don't understand it. We were very kind to him. Like, I truly, we almost said, we felt maybe he was a bit lonely. We should invite him back for dinner. I mean, that's how good of an experience I had.
Clearly.
And then it was a 180. So it's either A, it's being driven from a little boy insecurity, and he just was so worried that he just went on the attack because he doesn't know how to have normal relations after being banned everywhere.
Well, I think there's that
could be one element.
The angry gay kid thing going on.
Yeah. Or it's
oh boy.
Fuck you. You suck.
See, now starts getting more personal here.
What you're saying, where he does this, he's lying to everybody and pretending that things are one way when it's not. I can say
why is he attacking Joe Kent, who, Joe Kent worked as a CIA contractor, paramilitary contractor. He was in the U.S. military for years fighting our neocon wars. And his wife was killed in Syria in one of those wars. Joe Kent is the single most sincere critic, and I would say the one with the most credibility in the United States to say this foreign policy is bad. It killed my wife. I was a part of it. Joe Kent is actually someone the CIA doesn't like at all because he understands how it operates. And for Nick Fuentes, who's some child from Chicago, to go after him specifically, one congressional seat in Washington State.
That is random.
It's not random, though. It's the opposite of random. Joe Kent was number one on the list of people they wanted to knock off, people who believe in our neocon foreign policy. They wanted Joe Kent out because he could stand up and say, I actually know. I've got the receipts. My wife was killed in Syria. You had to take that guy out. And Nick Fuentes, this child, this weird little gay kid in his basement in Chicago, is participating in a super PAC to bump off Joe Kent. I've been around this my whole life. I know what that is.
You insulted him a little bit. You got a little out of order yourself.
So about this Joe Kent thing, Tucker Carlson makes it sound as though, Joe Kent was this real enemy of the neocon establishment, was really in the crosshairs of the deep state. And when he ran for Congress, Nick Fuentes tried to sink his campaign, and therefore Nick Fuentes must be a neocon op who was elevated in order to undermine anti-neocon figures and candidates like Joe Kent. Okay, problem with that. Nick Fuentes tweets out, Tucker Carlson claimed that I am part of a campaign to discredit authentic anti-neocon figures. His proof is that I randomly opposed Joe Kent, who says he is the perfect example of such a figure. This is the reason I opposed Joe Kent. What do you think? So the reason, as I'm going to reveal now, that Nick Fuentes apparently had a falling out with Joe Kent is because the Kent campaign did an event with Nick Fuentes, possibly pursuing his endorsement. And then once it came out that he was doing that, and once he realized how toxic Nick Fuentes was as a character because of how polarizing he is, Joe Kent then disavowed Nick Fuentes. So Joe Kent says, my opponents are again spreading lies about me. I strongly condemn Nick Fuentes' politics. And then here's interesting, especially in regards to our ally, Israel. So this anti-neocon foreign policy warrior apparently is very pro-Israel, right? Which doesn't jibe with the whole anti-neocon thing. This is why, Michael Tracy said, why do we even have the word neocon anymore? What difference does it make whether you call yourself a neocon anymore? If you're this committed to Israel, you may as well be a neocon. I ignored his invitation to speak at his recent conference in Orlando, and I am not aware of, nor do I accept any endorsement from him. So in July of 22, the AP reported GOP's links to extremism surface in congressional primary. Kent has also sought support from figures associated with white nationalist Groyper Army movement led by Nick Fuentes, an internet personality who had promoted white supremacist beliefs and attended the 2017 white supremacist rally in Charlottesville, Virginia, as well as the January 6th insurrection at the Capitol. Kent has acknowledged that a political consultant set up a call early in his campaign that Fuentes was part of, where expanding his campaign's reach on social media was discussed. But he denied that there was any sort of formal arrangement and distanced himself from Fuentes in March after their affiliation became broadly known. Kent tweeted at the time that he did not want Fuentes' endorsement due to his focus on race and religion. So clearly what happened here is very different from what Tucker says happened here. Tucker says that Nick Fuentes just took it upon himself to oppose this anti-neocon congressional America First candidate. That does not seem to be the reality of what happened. What seems to have happened is that Kent was kind of soliciting Fuentes' help and endorsement, and then once he realized how toxic Fuentes was, he disavowed Fuentes, and that's when Fuentes said, well, okay, fuck me, fuck you too. That apparently was how it went down. It wasn't that Nick Fuentes just decided, you know what, here's a guy who hates neocons, I'm going to sink him. That was Tucker's categorization of this. And by the way, things turned out okay for Joe Kent, who is actually now been appointed the counterterrorism chief just now. That just happened a couple days ago. The Senate confirmed him 52-44. Yeah.
Hang on. I thought he was just a white supremacist. He's an anti-Israel white supremacist? Well, that's a bridge too far then.
Yeah, that's a bridge too far. Exactly. So we will probably have a piece on Joe Kent on Tuesday's show, since that is kind of news in and of itself. All right. So again, that's another, I won't say lie, but another pretty gross distortion that Tucker got caught in there. Pretty egregiously mischaracterizing the whole Joe Kent thing.
It's just an organized effort.
Yeah.
And he also did the thing that David Duke always did, including to me, which is be like, oh, yeah, it's my friend. And everyone's like, oh, Tucker Carlson's been endorsed by David Duke. I've been making like the anti-racist argument my whole life. Right. Like, I'm not for David Duke. Do I think David Duke is right when he's against affirmative action? You bet I do. But I'm not for David Duke. But David Duke would try to discredit people by hugging them. And that's exactly what Fuentes did. He goes out there, meet all these people, shop, hi, I'm Nick Fuentes. Can I get my picture with you? That's a campaign to destroy credible voices on the right. And Fuentes is part of it. And I know I'm inviting endless trouble by saying this because, you know, this is a kid with a lot of spare time, but it's just a fact. And I've seen it a lot. Yeah. And I you can believe me or not, but I know what I'm talking about.
Okay. Now, you know, once again, you know, I'm not going to sit up here and defend Nick Fuentes. I don't know much about him, but, you know, I do know that Charlottesville rally was obviously awful, and I think enough of his past statements kind of speak for themselves. So this is, you know, in no way an endorsement of Nick Fuentes, but I do have to say, in terms of credibility, for Tucker to go out there and say, well, he reminds you of David Duke as a guy who wraps his arm around you and then poisons your reputation because he's so non-credible. Well, is Nick Fuentes less credible than this guy, Darryl Cooper, who, to Tucker Carlson's face, said that the Russian deaths in the POW camps in World War II were an accident of logistics and due to poor planning by the Germans? Let's take a look at this minute of video here.
Look, they put themselves into a position, and Adolf Hitler's chiefly responsible for this, but his whole regime is responsible for it, that when they went into the East in 1941, they launched a war where they were completely unprepared to deal with the millions and millions of prisoners of war, of local political prisoners and so forth that they were going to have to handle. They went in with no plan for that. And they just threw these people into camps, and millions of people ended up dead there. You know, you have like letters as early as July, August 1941 from commandants of these makeshift camps that they're setting up for these millions of people who are surrendering or people they're rounding up. And so it's 2 months after, a month or two after Barbarossa was launched. And they're writing back to the high command in Berlin saying, we can't feed these people. We don't have the food to feed these people. And one of them actually says, rather than wait for them all to slowly starve this winter, wouldn't it be more humane to just finish them off quickly now?
Okay. You know, it's funny. Upon watching that again, I realized that Cooper is so slick there to not himself say that the Germans did that out of mercy. He cites one letter. He says, you know, one of these letters said, one of these letters said it would be more humane to do it this way.
People. And one of them actually says, rather than wait for them all to slowly starve this winter, wouldn't it be more humane to just finish them off quickly now?
So he doesn't actually come out and explicitly say that was their motive. He says, hey, there was this one guy who suggested, hey, wouldn't the more humane thing to do would be to just shoot them because we don't have enough food to feed them. This is a guy who Tucker had on and then had on again. So if Nick Fuentes is an op who is supposed to discredit everyone he comes into contact with by association, then why on earth would you have this guy on twice and laud him as your favorite modern historian? How is that not discrediting? Is what Nick Fuentes says any more ludicrous than this? I don't know how anything could be any more ludicrous than that, and yet this is one of Tucker's favorite guys. He's now been a repeat guest on the show.
Yeah. Well, when you're going to take a crackpot like this who says something like that, and you're right, and when we covered this, we got into that. Yeah, there were a lot of people who were like regular German army who were not devout Nazis who weren't in on the plan.
Right.
Yeah, I'm sure there was some commandant low-level guy who wrote a letter like that. Daryl Cooper will grab something like that and tell you, oh, so you see, the preponderance of all the other evidence is out the window. This is why we said from the beginning when we covered this guy. He relies on the ignorance of his audience. You have to be so fucking ignorant to not realize what a crackpot this guy is. But that begs the question, why does Tucker keep having him on?
Right.
This is a guy who said the Lithuanians who hit MLK in the head with a cinder block had a point because they weren't white, they were Lithuanian.
Right.
How do you have this guy back on?
Right. So is Nick Fuentes any more egregious a Nazi sympathizer or white supremacist than Daryl Cooper? I mean, I haven't done exhaustive research on each of them, but they seem at best to be in the same ballpark. I mean, I don't see how anything Nick Fuentes says is more, out of left field or outrageous than that. I don't get that.
Well, and you're saying Nick Fuentes is discrediting you by throwing his arms around you. Aren't you discrediting yourself?
Right.
That as soon as that guy said that, you weren't like, all right, interview's over. Sorry. I thought you were an actual historian. I didn't realize you're a jerk off. Bye.
Exactly.
In fact, you bring him back. America's most honest historian. He's not a historian.
Right.
He's not a historian. Ballrooms all over America are full of crackpots who hang out at the library and come up with deranged interpretations of what they've read to impress people and get them to buy them drinks.
Exactly. So there you have that, right? I don't see how anything Nick Fuentes said could be, as crazy as that. But Fuentes, in response to Tucker's rantings here, went live for, yes, you read that correctly, 5 hours and 56 minutes.
Oh, damn.
At
first I read that as 5 minutes.
No, he had a lot to say about this.
Shit.
He did a 6-hour live stream in response to this.
It didn't get into any role-playing games or anything?
No, this
during
was
the
just
6 hours?
Straight monologuing.
No Zelda?
Nope. Just straight monologuing, no video games, no nothing. And
that is talent.
Yeah, no, you're not kidding. So Fuentes updates.
Look out, Alex Jones. Kid's coming for the crown.
Exactly. Yeah. So Fuentes updates post this 7-minute piece. We're not going to play all of this. We'll play about half of this. So get ready for some smoked mayonnaise, folks, because he cooks Tucker pretty good here. Pretty good here.
Carlson said I'm a weird gay kid in the basement. Yeah, and I'm from Chicago. You're right. Well, okay, you're not right about all of that. But I wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth. Tucker Carlson says, I have so many trust funds, I never have to work. Tucker went to a $45,000 per year private high school, then a $45,000 per year selective Ivy League school in New England. Tucker Carlson's daddy was a Reagan appointee. And then, after years of bragging about being an elite, bragging about being so out of touch and so rich, now he's going to be the spokesperson for all the white people. Now he's going to roll up his sleeves. I just like to hunt and fish in my log cabin. I care about Klarna and credit card debt. But then when it comes to me, I'm one of the real disaffected white people. You want to talk about me and them? I am them. He says Nick Fuentes is leading all of the disaffected young white men. I am a disaffected young white man. I was a precocious, intelligent, young white college student who went to Boston University, who was pro-Trump and red-pilled by Trump and animated by Trump's message of America first. And I asked questions about Israel, and I was punished for it. I did it years before Tucker Carlson started talking about Israel last year. And I sacrificed, and I was targeted by the ADL, by the SPLC, by the federal government, by the conservative movement that both Candace and Tucker were a part of.
He's got a bit of a point.
No lies detected.
I mean, is he wrong? He's not wrong about that. And he says in a different part of this, obviously it's a 6-hour stream, so there were a bunch of clips I could have captured. He makes the point. Tucker came from Fox.
Did you watch the whole thing?
No, I didn't watch the whole thing. No, but there were a bunch of clips that surfaced online. No, I am not that devoted to this project, although I give this most of my time. I don't have that kind of time. He mentions, Tucker came from Fox. Candace came from the Daily Wire, right? Like they both Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens had major connections. They had a lot of money backing them at first. And what you're seeing is kind of the mirror image of what we kind of see in our online left space, the more PMC-oriented commentators who came out of MSNBC jobs like Crystal Ball, Cenk Uygur, right? They came out of the corporate media world. Now they're kind of gatekeeping against the more scrappy working class, just sort of, bubble gum and paper clips, sort of DIY operations. Like ours, quite frankly, and like RBN and Heartlands Media, right? There's the same kind of gatekeeping that goes on our side of things, apparently goes on the right as well. And that's what he is kind of very astutely calling out there. He's right. He's right. There is a bit of class condescension coming from Tucker there. And the irony is, a guy like Nick Fuentes,
kid in his basement.
Right, in his basement. Right. The irony is, as Nick will get into in a moment, is that Nick Fuentes is really kind of the target audience for the Tucker Carlson show. Like, why is Tucker surprised that there are young whites who feel economically disenfranchised and culturally disaffected? It's because they consume a media diet of Tucker Carlson and Tucker Carlson type programming. But we'll let Nick cook a little more.
Candace and Tucker had nothing to say about Israel until it became unavoidable last year. Not popular, but unavoidable.
That's also true. I mean, that's also true, if we're being real.
And now they want to gatekeep me out and do this personality attack and say I'm a bitter loser in my basement from Chicago. I'm a kid from Chicago. And they slipped up there because they forgot for 1 second that they're pretending to be the spokesperson for exactly that kind of person. Tucker's mask slipped, and he forgot for a minute that for 8 years he's been pretending to care about the plight of weird kids in their parents' basement who are broke and didn't go to an Ivy League school, living in cities that don't matter like Chicago, not like Washington, D.C. or L.A. or New York. And that's why he had such disdain and contempt for me in that moment. Between the personality attacks, he's lonely, he's weird, he lives in a basement. I'm sorry, did you guys forget that that's your target audience that you're trying to pander to?
Exactly.
Did you forget that for 2 seconds? And I'm the inauthentic person? I am that person. I am a spokesman for the disaffected white man because I am one, and you two are not. Candace Owens got married to British royalty worth $200 million after meeting him for 2 weeks on Zoom. What the fuck is even that about?
And also, I'm young, reasonably attractive, and famous. I am knee-deep in pussy, my friend. I tripped on pussy on the way to this microphone.
Yeah, exactly.
Owens got married to British royalty worth $200 million after meeting him for 2 weeks on Zoom. What the fuck is even that about? And Tucker Carlson's dad ran the CIA's propaganda empire fighting the Soviet Union. He went and fought with the Contras when he was in college. When I was in college, I was doing a webcam show in my friend's dorm room criticizing Israel. So who's the CIA cutout? Who's the inauthentic one? Who's the crazy, hateful one? I would never describe a well-meaning young white person who's trying to get ahead as a weird kid in his basement from Chicago. And what is that supposed to mean? What is wrong with being from Chicago? What is wrong with being weird? What is wrong with living in your basement?
Notice he doesn't say what is wrong with being gay. You can't go there. He skips over that one.
Kind of a clear omission.
Skips over that one.
That's a lot of people because of the problems you claim to care about. Tucker's at Turning Point USA extolling the predatory nature of usury and how it's preventing young white men from getting homes. And then the week after says, you're in your mom's basement. So which is it?
Kid's right, man. The kid's right. I mean, he's got a point, man.
One thing Tucker said was right on. He's talented.
He is talented. And hey, man, that's a good point. That's a good point. You know, their class perspective kind of came through when they got some lip from one of the plebes, right? Just like, you know, the PMC commentariat on our side of things doesn't like getting lip from the plebes. They feel like they are entitled to deferential treatment from the plebes. That's how they view Fuentes, as a plebe, as a basement-dwelling loser. And it's absolutely true that, you know, Tucker goes up on that Turning Point stage and talks about what a tragedy it is that people like Fuentes don't have, you know, more in life in ways of, you know, opportunities and economic prospects. And then to so dismissively sort of describe him as a weird gay kid in the basement. Yeah, man. I mean, everything he said there was spot on. And like I said, I don't want people to confuse this with an endorsement of Nick Fuentes. It obviously is not. I personally don't know enough about him to render like a final a verdict. I'm just saying, you know, I can't go there really. But yeah, man. I mean, that was cooking. I mean, those were undeniable points. And it's not just me saying that. Even a lot of people on the right are saying that. So Clint Russell, the sort of MAGA libertarian guy, one of the Mises Caucus guys, says, I like Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens a lot, but man, they messed up. Tucker became a darling of the populist right by dismantling politicians and swamp narratives. Fuentes, at just 26, what the fuck, returned fire with a nuclear bomb of legitimate evidence that Tucker may not be who he purports himself to be. In many ways, it reminded me of Tucker at his apex best, but it was Nick playing the role of Tucker. No clue how this internecine battle concludes, but Tucker better take this seriously. Character smears will not win this one. And then, just to give the other side of this, because like I said, I can't render a final verdict on Fuentes. I just don't know enough about him. You know, what I know is not great. Believe me, not great. Fuentes is a scumbag, also possibly a Fed, one of the few people to publicly encourage people to go into the Capitol on January 6th and suffer zero repercussions for it. So, I mean, touche. That's kind of interesting. And then World's Gone Mad says, this whole thing is fucking dumb. Fuentes attacks Dave Smith, Candace, and Tucker relentlessly, but his point is what? They don't go hard enough against the government in Israel? It doesn't even make any sense, like, at all. Okay, well, that sounds like someone in our space saying, why would people like RBN or like Jimmy go after TYT? Why? Because they're not progressive enough, right? That kind of seems like the same kind of gatekeeping that occurs on this side of things. It's occurring in MAGA now. So I think the interesting question is, why is this rift happening now, right? Why are they at each other's throats now? And I think ultimately when you zoom out from 30,000 feet, this is what happens to a movement when its leaders fail and the truth is no longer on their side. This kind of thing, this exact splintering off of the MAGA sphere, is what we went through on the progressive left when we realized that the Bernie movement was a dead end and that Bernie fucked up and fucked us over. And we were kind of figuring, okay, where do we go from here? Anyone looking at the Trump administration with open eyes understands what Nick explicitly states, which is, fuck you, you suck. That's the whole rant he went on about Trump between Epstein and Israel and all that. And then you got these people like Tucker and Candace Owens who, yeah, they're leveling their criticisms, much in the way that, you know, Cenk Uygur and Crystal Ball leveraged their criticisms against Biden and the Democrats when they were in charge. And at the end of the day, where are they come November 2024? Well, you got to bend the knee and vote Democrat. I suspect Tucker and Candace represent more that wing of the MAGA commentariat, who at the end of the day are going to end up sheepdogging you back in, whereas Fuentes is the scrappy little kid who went rogue. And they don't like that. And I think they're threatened by that for the reason that they can't really control that. And so I think once your movement is exposed for the fraud that it is, I think this splintering off happens. I think the Bernie movement was ultimately fraudulent in nature. It was sold as a political revolution. It was not. Once that became obvious, what happened? It fell apart. People turned on each other and went off in different directions. I think the same thing is happening on the right, fueled by the Iran bombing and this Epstein fiasco. There's no leadership anymore that is reliable. So these people are having to navigate their way through a political space while not able to just defer to the leader of the movement. There is no real leader of the MAGA movement at this point for the MAGA people who have an actual political agenda beyond torturing brown people for its own sake.
Yeah, well, we saw Tucker right before he gave that speech about how people can't afford things at Turning Points. He didn't say shit about the big, beautiful bill. Didn't say nothing.
Exactly.
And that is very in keeping with that Breaking Points, Kyle Kulinski crew. You remember Crystal saying when people thought maybe, you know, Marianne Williamson wasn't anyone to get behind. If you want power, you have to like, oh yeah, no, that's a very sophisticated political position. Marianne Williamson as the platform to power, and you're condescending to people while supporting Miss Topanga Canyon 1973. You're telling people they're not politically mature the way that you are.
Grow up. That was her big quote.
Grow up. That's what she said. Grow up. Yeah, it's very much that. Also, look, man, on both sides, on all sides, give a shout out to our many commie friends. Yeah, man. I mean, Lenin and their theorists broadly have written probably more about this phenomena than any school of political thought. The way that PMCs, the bourgeoisie, the aristocrats themselves insert themselves into revolutionary impulses and prevent them from becoming revolutions. Oh yeah, we're with you. And then they jump out in front of it and tamp it down. And keep it under control. That is what on the right, that's what Candace, that's what Tucker do. Because I promise you, you're absolutely right. When election time rolls around, they'll find their way clear to throwing their full support behind whoever the Republican candidate is. Just like, hey, if you've noticed, Crystal's a lot better right now. She's always good between elections.
Oh, yeah.
She's very good right now. She won't be once they actually have a candidate for the Democrats for her to sheepdog people into voting for. So yeah, man, you always have these people trying to tamp that down. And you look at Nick Fuentes, that's the eternal conflict. That's the conflict between the rabble who want the revolution and the bourgeoisie who just want to talk about revolution. They want to do a very safe critique of power, but they don't actually want to overturn those systems. They're there specifically to make sure that you don't.
Yeah. I think that's generally spot on. Now, as for like Nick Fuentes and January 6th, yeah, I mean, that one guy who replied, say, isn't it kind of strange how this guy's, openly telling people to go into the Capitol but never face repercussions? Sure. I mean, there's things you can ask questions about. I can't render a final verdict on any of that right now. But looking at that exchange and just analyzing the claims that Tucker made, not only just blatantly lying about not knowing his dad was in the CIA until he died, but also just totally mischaracterizing that whole Joe Kent thing, where he acted like Fuentes was just out for this guy because the guy was anti-neocon. No, it turns out Fuentes was going to endorse him. Kent disavowed Fuentes because he was a liability, and that's what. So Tucker totally misrepresented that. So just based on the merits of that exchange, there's absolutely no doubt Fuentes got the better of him. He comes out of that looking like the more sincere actor, quite frankly. Now, are there things about him that I don't know that may affect my judgment of that? Sure. I mean, I'm not here to render a verdict on Nick Fuentes. I don't think anybody cares what my opinion of him is at the end of the day. But in terms of that exchange, this moment that kind of caught the internet by storm, yeah, I agree with what Russell said. I mean, I agree with what you said as well, but I'm talking about Clint Russell in the tweet that, yeah, man, I mean, Tucker did not come out of that looking very good. He really didn't. All right. Artie Blarty Fartblast says post-duopoly Burr LLC. Thank you, Artie Blarty Fartblast. Appreciate that very much. Empire We Are, thanks to the $5. Hope can make fools of all of us. That's wise. David Santucci, thanks for the $10. Imagine if Joe Rogan had even half the diligence and integrity you guys have. That's why I'm a Patreon member. Well, thank you, David.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Imagine we had half the money that Rogan had. Imagine that. Imagine.
They'd wind up Epsteining us because we would try to start a revolution.
Yeah, exactly. You mean the Silver Surfer not being a bloke is just the deep state messing with me, says Artie Party Fart Blast. Appreciate that. Daria says, Do Dissidents would actually be a great gene company name, and you can have the genes made in Lesotho and help pull them out of Trump's tariff hell. There you go. I like that idea.
Good idea.
Port Film Co-op says, Fuentes is great. Highly recommended. Go watch. Many have had Fuentes on YouTube. She just wanted money. Oh, is that true? Okay. All right. I didn't know that. I didn't know. I couldn't find anything of him like interviewed on YouTube. I know people have commented on his things. I know she paywalled it. That could have just been her motivation there. That is definitely possible. You know who's apparently a fan of the show? I'll shout him out. I don't think he's trolling. I think he's being real. Is Rex Jones, who's Alex Jones's son.
Yeah.
He tweets at us very encouraging things a lot. And he tweeted the other day, we got like 300 new like X followers. I'm like, where the hell did this come from? He tagged us in a tweet. He says, my two favorite shows are Do Dissidents and Nick Fuentes. And because Nick Fuentes is so much more popular than we are, that tweet got seen by a lot of people because he was tagged in it. Right. So then a bunch of people out of curiosity, I guess, followed us. So I don't know. maybe they're
so if the chat's a little weird tonight.
Yeah, so if the chat's a little weird tonight, we could have some Nick Fuentes fans just checking us out for the first time. Could be that. But shout out to Rex Jones. Yeah, that is funny. That's a trip. Jake, can you throw the patron scroll up on the screen, please? Thank you very much. So, folks, it's Sunday night, which means after the conclusion of the program, we've got a Q&A for patrons, paid Substackers, and paid Locals members. To sign up, go to any one of those three links at the top of that screen, dodissidents.com/Patreon/Substack or /local. So after the show tonight, all are welcome to watch the Q&A, which will be broadcast exclusively on Rumble. Everybody can watch that. Members can call in and talk to us. So your support is what keeps the show going. That's not the only perk you get. You get film club nights once a month. You also get post-game access to bonus content and Q&As. We do that once a month as well. You get ad-free replays of all of our live streams emailed directly to you the day after they air live. So if you miss a show and you want to watch it back free of ad interruption, you can get that emailed to you by becoming a member. All of this for just $5 a month or $50 annually, which gets you 2 months free on Substack and Locals. So like I said, you guys are the backbone of the show. We thank you very, very much for your support. Furrows Queen says, could you have Sim Kern on, please? They wrote a New York Times and USA Today about the genocide. She's an anti-Israel Jew. The book is called Genocide Bad. Their Instagram is great. They do a lot of fundraising. Oh, we will look into that. Thank you, Furrow Screen. Appreciate that. Buddhist Nudist says, at this rate, Rogan is never going to invite you guys to the Austin Bohemian Grove. Yeah, probably not. Probably not.
I think that ship has sailed.
Yeah. Username says, Keaton, I just wanted to congratulate your children on their art project. It was nice of you to let them assemble your bookcases. Yeah, no, I wanted to organize this a little bit better. You know what it is? I moved my desk forward because I kept knocking my chair into it and knocking everything off of it. So that's why it looks a little emptier today than usual. P.S. Skirko, thanks for the $5. Have you ever covered or heard of Joe Sacco? He's made a number of graphic novels about Palestine, although I haven't heard much from him recently. Like you, Keaton, he's also Maltese. You know, I have heard that name before. It does ring a bell.
There's like a graphic novel. I think it's called Palestine, isn't there?
Perhaps.
I keep meaning to
Could
check
that be
it
his?
out.
I mean, I've
Maybe,
definitely heard
yeah,
the
that
name
might
Joe
be
Sacco
it.
before. I've definitely heard that name before. Nina Kant says, everything distraction, Diddy, Russiagate, everything look over here, not over here. Thank you, Nina.
Yep,
Appreciate
yep.
that. Siddhartha Vicious says, only 3 kids, Keaton. Get on raising the next generation of anarchists. Make Keaton breed again. Shop is closed. That shop is closed. Not my shop, but the wife's shop is closed. She had a C-section.
Who could blame her?
Yeah, so she got the old tube, tube tied. That's what she got. As I like to say, she sabotaged her own Nord Stream pipeline upon the birth of upon the birth of Augie. So Augie is the last one.
Yeah,
that's it.
that's
I've
it.
done my piece. I've done my
You've
piece
done
for
your
humanity.
bit for the gene pool.
That's right. That's right. All right, let's move right on along. We got 2 more segments on the night.
All right. As you might have heard, Ghislaine Maxwell has gotten a pretty good deal. She joins famous prisoners in move to Texas prison camp. It is a total mystery why, after meeting with Trump's personal lawyer, who he made the deputy AG, why she got this deal. No one can figure it out. It's quite a mystery. Ghislaine Maxwell joined Theranos founder Elizabeth Holmes. That they're going to start a massage business together.
Talk about a podcast in the jailhouse with Ghislaine Maxwell and Elizabeth Holmes.
And celebrity housewife Jen Shah at a federal prison camp in Texas this week. The government hasn't said why they transferred the convicted sex trafficker and confidant to Jeffrey Epstein from a low-security prison in Florida to a less restrictive minimum security prison near Texas A&M University. The prison is considered one of the top minimum security prisons to serve time in, according to prison consultancy group for safety, comfort, and amenities. The former British socialite, 63, is one of the most powerful prisoners in American history. The transfer comes as Maxwell's attorneys are pressing the U.S. Supreme Court to overturn her conviction while also seeking a pardon or commutation for her from President Donald Trump in exchange for her cooperation in the Epstein investigation and broader sex trafficking matters. Maxwell spent 2 days last week talking to Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, Trump's former personal defense lawyer, at a courthouse near the Tallahassee prison where she was serving a 20-year sentence for sex trafficking linked to Epstein. And this is Anyone Want Chips tweeted this out. When the attorney representing roughly 20 Epstein victims asked to be included in the highly inappropriate meetings between Todd Blanche and Ghislaine Maxwell, it's actually Ghislaine. I have just found out. Ghislaine.
Yeah,
Maxwell.
I love the name Ghislaine, though. It's in
People say
Ghislaine.
it. People do say it both ways, but I think it actually is Ghislaine.
Ghislaine is such an elegant sounding name.
Ghislaine is better, but
great
it is
name.
Ghislaine.
Yeah.
But was barred from attending. Blanche is acting as Trump's lawyer, not the U.S. Deputy AG. Do you think? Do you think this is all true? Because we reported on the story at the time. There were a lot of veterans of the Department of Justice who said this is unprecedented. It's unheard of that you would have the defendant meet only with the deputy AG, with no one else allowed in the room. Nobody, not her attorney, nobody. Why would you do that unless you wanted to keep the things said in that room a secret? And Todd Blanche was Trump's personal attorney. So this is a little bit of reporting on this.
A central figure in President Donald Trump's Epstein controversy is now staying in Central Texas. Since 2022, Maxwell has been serving a 20-year prison sentence for child sex trafficking in Florida. This week, officials confirmed that Maxwell is now staying at the federal prison camp in Bryant. The facility is a minimum security women's prison that houses a number of other high-profile inmates. The move comes as the Trump administration continues to come under fire for not releasing the entirety of the Epstein files. Among those pressuring for transparency are the family of victim Virginia Giuffre.
She wanted the world to know what they've done to her and so many other survivors, and she had been fighting that to her very last day, and I think we have taken that mantle on, and we will continue to fight with her and for all the other survivors so that their truth is known to the world and that they're vindicated.
Maxwell's legal team is asking that the Justice Department give her immunity in exchange for a complete testimony about Epstein's dealings. Those terms are being denied, though President Trump has mulled the idea of pardoning her sometime later.
So Virginia Giuffre's family are not the only victims or victim-adjacent people speaking out. A lot of the victims themselves are speaking out about this. Epstein victim Annie Farmer on Ghislaine Maxwell.
Pure girls and women for Epstein, but she herself participated in their abuse. I think that's an important thing for people to understand. And then she also, made threats. She made threats to my sister, to our family, when it was clear that my sister had reported her.
Okay. This is Sarah Ransom, who's been speaking out quite a lot about the case, about Ghislaine Maxwell. She has also claimed that she has seen or was at least formerly in possession of the tapes of Donald Trump, Bill Clinton, and others in compromising positions.
It makes me sick that she is claiming to be a victim or have any form of innocence. This is the same woman that grabbed my arm and forced me into a room to be raped by Jeffrey. It was brutal. And I remember limping from Jeffrey's bedroom to the bungalow where the survivors slept. And I remember looking at Ghislaine, and she had this evil smirk on her face. She knew by forcing me into Jeffrey's room that I was there to be raped, and she enjoyed it.
This is from 60 Minutes, so we can't play it, but it's worth reading. There's Virginia Giuffre in this interview with 60 Minutes. You can find this pretty easily online. Said, "I was instructed to get undressed and have sex with Jeffrey Epstein while Ghislaine Maxwell was participating as well. Both of them. I was abused by Ghislaine and Epstein." So this is in part a statement that was put out by Giuffre's family about this.
Horror and outrage that we object to the preferential treatment that convicted sex trafficker Ghislaine Maxwell has received. The American public should be enraged by the preferential treatment being given to a pedophile and a criminally charged child sex offender. The Trump administration should not credit a word that Maxwell says, as the government itself sought charges against Maxwell for being a serial liar. This move smacks of a cover-up. The victims deserve better.
Well, the Epstein case really revolves around these horrific examples of grooming. But there are other types of grooming, like the kind of grooming that a political movement might do to its followers to get them to accept their pardoning eventually of a famous sex trafficker that they actually promised they were going to hold accountable and whose accomplices they were going to hold accountable. So what we're seeing with Trump and a lot of Trump adjacent media is them grooming the MAGA movement to accept the eventual pardoning of Ghislaine Maxwell. Says Ed Krasenstein, Trump now claims to know nothing about Ghislaine Maxwell's case before saying no one has asked him to pardon her. In other words, he knows everything about the case, and her lawyers have asked him to pardon her. It's coming. He will pardon her in exchange for her lying to protect him. I think that is the most reasonable explanation for why you would move this famous sex criminal that you promised, you ran on holding these people accountable, move them to Club Fed, away from what sounds like it wasn't even a particularly harsh prison that she was in. She was in a minimum security as it was. So here's a little of his interview with Newsmax.
Ghislaine Maxwell serving 20 years in prison for sex trafficking. Is clemency on the table for her in exchange for testimony?
I'm allowed to do it, but nobody's asked me to do it. I know nothing about it. I don't know anything about the case, but I know I have the right to do it. I have the right to give pardons. I've given pardons to people before, but nobody's even asked me to do it.
Come on. Why on earth would you talk this way about one of the most famous sex traffickers in history, a woman that he wished well when he was asked about her at the podium in 2020? And when Axios followed up in an interview with him, yeah, she lost her boyfriend. It's terrible. I wish a lot of people.
I think the betting odds are now like 18% that she's going to get pardoned. Not to be construed as advice in this way, but I think that's a good buy. I think that's a good buy because this is looking like he's going to fucking pardon this woman. That is fucking amazing. I mean, you talk about a final dick in the ass on the way out of office. January of 2029. Just like Biden pardoned Fauci. This is like, I'll see you, Fauci. I'll raise you, Maxwell.
Okay, so Krasenstein is pretty good at finding the groomer clips on this. Mark my words, Trump will pardon Ghislaine Maxwell and she'll say exactly what he wants her to. The setup, right-wing media is already seeding doubt about her guilt to give MAGA cover when it happens.
Unbelievable.
Only the fully brainwashed will fall for it. Okay, so this is grooming. This is a different type of grooming. Here is Greg Kelly grooming the faithful to accept the pardon of Ghislaine Maxwell and to accept this prison transfer.
Epstein pleaded guilty to the sex stuff in 2008, all right? He's a dirtbag monster. Does that mean Ghislaine Maxwell is? I don't think so, folks. That's not the way our society works. Not the way it's supposed to work.
Unbelievable.
At all. There is so much exculpatory evidence
joke.
here that nobody understands, that it looks like the government kept from the defense, which is illegal, juror misconduct, you name it. And look at what happened in that court, right?
Watch.
Prosecutor pointing the finger. All right, just remember this image. For
Comey.
Right? Ghislaine Maxwell's on the left. It's COVID, right? So hardly anybody's there. And the attorney, the government attorney, doesn't have to wear a mask, pointing her finger right there at Maxwell.
Throws in a little COVID culture war there. She doesn't have to wear a mask. It's Comey's daughter. Just say Comey and maybe we'll get like some kind of Pavlovian reaction out of the audience. Oh, yeah, it's Comey. It's Comey. They set Ghislaine Maxwell up. They set her up.
They made Ghislaine Maxwell wear a mask. Meanwhile, these cultural elites like Maureen Comey didn't wear a mask. After that, she took a private jet out to the West Coast to meet Gavin Newsom at the French Laundry without a mask, too. Meanwhile, Ghislaine Maxwell is a persecuted working woman.
She's been persecuted.
To wear a mask. Yeah.
She's been persecuted. She is everything that MAGA claims they hate. Her sister literally works at the World Economic Forum.
Oh,
she is this deep state daughter of an Israeli operative, of an Israeli spy. She is everything that the MAGA movement was supposed to be, electing Trump to fight against.
Wow.
And this is why they got to get scumbags like this to groom the audience. That's what they're doing. You're being groomed. You're being groomed like an Epstein victim. to take the big dick when Donald Trump jams it in your ass with that pardon. But hey, man, to be fair, sex criminals got to stick together. Good Day New York anchor Greg Kelly, rape charges dropped. This was back in 2012. He was actually the son of Ray Kelly, the police commissioner in New York at the time. And somehow they decided that there wasn't enough evidence to charge the son of the police commissioner. You know, sex criminals, they got to stick together, man. If they don't defend each other, who will? Nick Sorter. So here's another example of the grift, the grift cast world grooming you, preparing you. So this is a little more clever than what Greg Kelly did. Greg Kelly just straight up was like, yeah, she's a victim of the deep state.
Yeah, she's innocent. Yeah.
He just went really dumb. What they're doing is, see, she's giving up names for special treatment. She's manipulating them, but what choice do they have? They got to get the names, right? Epstein associate Ghislaine Maxwell has been moved to a federal prison camp in Texas following her meetings with Deputy AG Blanche. Prison camps are much nicer than prisons. Something's happening here. Did she give up big names? You see, it's not that Trump is trying to get her not to give up big names. You see, he's on the side of the angels. He's just trying to get her to talk. Autism Capital responds, Ghislaine is milking this for every single thing she can. She was already infamous in prison for deliberately wasting their time and resources by writing letters and making requests 24/7 to clog the prison resources, and as a big FU, the guards hate her. You can guarantee she is ecstatic about using this nation's interest in this case and Trump's precarious situation to get the best possible conditions for herself and ultimately freedom if she can. This is a game she's trying to win. She's not a dope. And Nick Sorter, so far it seems to be working for her. The new prison camp is essentially club fed. Well, that is definitely a more elaborate grooming tactic to convince people, yeah, you should hate her because she's using all of her knowledge of Epstein's accomplices to get herself better conditions, but they're only giving her better conditions because they want to hold those people accountable. You know, and by the time Trump pardons her, nobody's held accountable. You know, they made their money already. They don't care. They'll be on to the next grift by then. They'll be on to the next pile of bullshit. Maxwell attorney David Oscar Marcus told USA Today that Ghislaine was moved to Bryan, Texas, but we have no other comment as to why the transfer was made and who requested it. Both facilities are federal prisons. The Texas prison is slightly smaller and holds about 600 women. Low security prisons typically serve people sentenced to 10 years or less, making Maxwell an exception. Her release date is 2037. So this was a very interesting interview with a prison consultant explaining how bizarre this arrangement is, how virtually unprecedented it is.
And the length of her sentence, it made sense that her charges and the length of her sentence, it made sense that she was designated to Tallahassee. Where she is now at Bryan is a minimum security camp. There are no cells. There are no guard towers. The inmates, and I did speak to a client there today who said she hadn't seen Ms. Maxwell yet, but they have pods. So there's maybe 2 or 3 girls in a pod. Women are allowed outside from 6 in the morning to 9 o'clock at night. There is no controlled movement. There's much more in terms of activities to do. I understand there's even a yoga course that's taught there. So it is a diametrically different situation from where she came. I understand why they might have transferred her. There's probably, you know, anybody that's cooperating for the government might have a target on their back, and it made sense to move her. Why she was moved to a camp, I don't know. And that is a very difficult move to accomplish under any circumstances.
Because they're going to pardon her.
Why is it difficult? What do you mean?
They're buttering her up.
Somebody like Ms. Maxwell, from my understanding, had at least 2 management variables associated with her case. So a management variable is a policy the Bureau of Prisons has that said that if you have a sentence greater than 10 years, you can't go to a camp. If you have greater than 20 years, you might have to go to a medium level security. If you have a charge of violence or any sexual offense, you're not typically eligible for a minimum security camp. The fact that she had at least 2 of these variables waived, one that she had more than 10 years remaining on her sentence, and certainly the charge itself, is very, very atypical. I've had clients with 1 or both of those charges, and getting a management variable waived for anyone within the Bureau of Prisons is next to impossible. To have 2 management variables waived, highly unusual.
Fix is in, folks. In Florida, Maxwell taught yoga and etiquette classes and worked in the library. The move to the Texas prison likely offers her more free time and less structured supervision. The Texas facility holds a call center that employs inmates, and it partners with Canine Companions for Independence to allow inmates to train dogs and become personal assistance dogs to become. The prison offers classes such as horticulture and plumbing and cosmetology. The cosmetology course may include massage. Maxwell's convictions came from her recruitment of underage girls to give Epstein massages. He then sexually abused them. Well, I hope they're not going to let her take that course. Inmates live in dormitory-style housing with cubicles housing 4 to 8 beds. Visitors are allowed from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. on weekends, according to the Bureau of Prisons website. Holmes, who is serving an 11-year sentence for fraud and conspiracy linked to the collapse of Theranos, earns 31 cents an hour helping soon-to-be-released women write resumes and apply for government benefits at the Texas prison camp, according to an article in People magazine. Holmes has been able to keep a mostly vegan diet in prison. Maxwell is also vegan. And PETA lobbied to ensure that she had vegan meals in prison. Well, it's good your donations are going to a good cause there if you donate to PETA. The prison sits on 37 acres between Austin and Houston. Holmes had described her time in prison as hell and torture, away from her 2 young children, according to an interview she gave to People magazine earlier this year. All right, so I kind of wanted to include that because it really illustrates how differently they treat these white-collar criminals from blue-collar criminals, street crime kind of criminals. You rob a bodega, you're going to be in hell, man. You're going to be fucking sharing a toilet with 10 guys and not being able to drop the soap in the shower for your whole fucking sentence. Look at these motherfuckers. Elizabeth Holmes robbed millions of fucking dollars from people, hundreds of millions of dollars. Look at the time she does. Look at the time she does. In fact, we have here an exclusive video. No one else has this. This video is from the prison camp, and we actually have Jelaine Maxwell talking about her experience at the new facility.
In prison, dinner was always a big thing. We had a pasta course, and then we had a meat or a fish. Paulie did the prep work. He was doing a year for contempt, and he had this wonderful system for doing the garlic. He used a razor, and he used to slice it so thin that it used to liquefy in the pan with just a little oil. It's a very good system. You know, when you think of prison, you get pictures in your mind of all those old movies with rows and rows of guys behind bars. But it wasn't like that for Wise Guys. It really wasn't that bad, except that I missed Jimmy. He was doing his time in Atlanta.
Give me 2 steaks while you're in there, all right?
She meant Jeffrey. She meant Jeffrey.
Yeah, Jeffrey. I mean, everybody else in the joint was doing real time, all mixed together, living like pigs. But we lived alone. I mean, we owned the joint.
That's right.
Yeah. Yep. They don't do the same kind of time you do, man. They don't do that kind of time. They do special rich person time. All right. You rob millions of people of their life savings, man. You go to Club Fed. You rob the cash register at the corner store because you can't feed your family. You're going away for 5 years of hell. You're going to go away to hell. This is from Hustle Bitch. They just upgraded Ghislaine Maxwell. She's now in a cushy minimum security prison with no cameras, no recordings, zero oversight. The woman who trafficked children for the elite just vanished behind a wall of silence. What names are they still protecting at all costs? Exactly. There's another thing from the family of Virginia Giuffre. President Trump has sent a clear message today. Fans of the playground deserve preferential treatment, and their victims do not matter. And let's not forget, Melania met Trump through Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein. She knew, meaning Melania. Yeah, at this point, I'm sorry, man. If you are still supporting Donald Trump, you can never again claim the moral high ground on anything. I don't ever want to hear you talking again about the perverted elite, about Democrat perverts and sex criminals, about the Clintons, about pizza shops. I don't want to hear fucking shit out of you. If you are still supporting, and hey, man, to be fair, we have seen a lot of MAGA people walk away from Trump in disgust over this, but you're also seeing a lot who won't.
Right.
And if you won't, I don't ever want to hear shit about global fans of the playground elites secretly running things behind the scenes, because you literally are propping up the global elite that you claim to be fighting. You are literally propping up the perverts that you said you were so concerned about. Trump is literally everything that you said you were against.
Yeah, I mean, it seems pretty obvious to me, as it does to just about everybody now. Polymarket, 99% chance he's in the files. DOJ says he's in the files.
He said he's in the
guilty.
files.
He said he's in the files, right, and that they're fake files. Yeah, no, it's as obvious as it could possibly be. It's completely pathetic at this point. You just see who has no bottom, who has no moral bottom.
Right.
You know, that guy, that anchor there talking about how, you know, Maxwell was railroaded and got a raw deal. I mean, it's just so pathetic. But, you know, look, I think smart money now is that he's going to pardon her. I mean, this was a gesture in that direction, a pretty unmistakable one and a pretty big one to move her to a minimum security prison. She's cooperating. She's giving them what they want, and in exchange, they're giving her what she wants. It's very, very obvious. It's happening in broad daylight.
And some have speculated the release of that book was a warning. And it very well might have been, because right after that, it never occurred to them to talk to her? Right after that, they rushed right into talking to her and moved her to a minimum security prison.
Yeah, a warning and an offer, right? It's the same thing, right? That seems likely. You know, what is near certain at this point is that she gave her terms. They agreed to them. I would be shocked if she is not pardoned on the way out the door. This move is a major step in that direction, obviously.
So somebody made the point, guys, 83 and obese. What does he give a fuck?
You don't.
I mean, when hit by the time he gets out of office.
Yeah, no,
he'll be 83.
Yeah, he won't care. No, he doesn't care about JD Van. He doesn't care about anything. He cares about saving his own.
Well, by the time he does those
about.
Pardons, the election will be over anyway.
It's over anyway. There's nothing you can do. And at that point, I mean, I don't know who's going to be left to vote for these fucking people, but we'll see. We'll see what tricks they have up their sleeve. All right. David Santucci says maybe Nick Fuentes is a virgin. That would explain his touchiness about the marriage question. Well, he did say to Candace Owens in that interview that he doesn't date. I don't know if he's a virgin or not. I have no idea. But he said he doesn't date, and part of the reason he doesn't date is because he's a very controversial figure. He's had people come to his house and try and hurt him, so he doesn't want that many people knowing where he lives. You know, a public figure gets a dating profile that comes with exposure and risk. So that could be an element of that for sure. Artie Blarty Fartblast says the next step for Tucker and Candace is to see woke as a conspiracy to discredit the left. Bob Hodis, thanks for the $10. Appreciate that. Bowie Upland, thanks for the $5. And Bowie Upland says, Nick, the future, and he's only 26. Plan accordingly. Pass a law. Thanks for the $5. Hey, the rehabilitation of Germany is in effect since Germany rearming. Artie Blarty Fartblast says lean, mean, and hungry right versus rich, comfy right. There you go. Tunker as Sonny Liston and Fuentes at Hungry Ali. Thanks, Artie Blarty Fartblast. Jay Bell says 2026, less talking, more rocking. Mislead, thanks for the $2. Kyle supported Bernie and called out Biden, question mark. No, I'm just saying in the home stretch of an election, they come home to support the Democrats. And just like, if you notice, Tucker and Candace Owens have not gone. I mean, Candace has gone harder than Tucker has. Tucker will not look into the camera and say about Trump, fuck you, you suck. He won't do that. He'll still call him a very kind, humane person, even though Tucker
he wouldn't
claims
even
to
speak
be
out about the bill.
All right. Or real. I mean, he spoke out against the war in Iran, but not in a way that, say, Dave Smith did. Dave Smith said, I'm done. Trump should be impeached and removed over this. To Dave's credit, that's a rebuke of Trump over the Iran thing.
Right.
Trump, I mean, Tucker spoke out against that, but not naming names the way someone who's for real would. I'm sorry, that's just the way it goes. Dmitry Mogianis says, in this bleak epoch, DD has become my main news source. Solidarity from Harlem. Oh, there you go. Comrades, PS, gay kid in the basement, new voice clip. Yeah, maybe. Thank you for that. Mike Favini, thanks for the €5. Days of Destruction, Days of Revolt by Joe Sacco was great. Regrettably, I still haven't read anything by him on Palestine. Thank you for that.
Am I understanding in the chat? I don't want to spread a rumor. Seems like people saying Dwayne Vogel died.
Really?
Yeah.
Died?
Yeah.
What do you mean died?
Seems like that's what they're saying.
That would be terrible if that happened. We'll have to take a look on.
Yeah, somebody's saying rest in power, Dwayne Vogel.
Did that actually happen? I'll have to check on Facebook. Aren't we friends with him on Facebook?
I am. Okay. I'll take a look.
We'll have to take a look. Yeah, that would be horrible. Yeah, I don't know. We'll have to look.
That would be horrible. Last time I talked to him, we argued about comic books.
Yeah. We'll have to take a look at that. Yeah, we don't want to say anything. We don't want to say anything unsubstantiated. Let's see. One new post. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
he hasn't posted. I'll have to check. I mean, it's been a while. He hasn't posted. I'll have to see. I'll have to check. I mean, I don't want to say anything until I know for sure, but that would be awful news. My friend, I hope you're doing well. So that was 86. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see anything on his Facebook page about it.
Okay. Yeah. Well, we'll have to take a look. I don't know. I mean, I don't want to say that as fact unless we know. But yeah, that would be horrible. Really bad. Yeah, that's terrible. He was I mean, I don't want to say was. I don't know if it's true or not. I gotta wait to see if it's actually true. Where did people hear that though? Where did people find that out? Because on Facebook, there's no announcement.
Yeah, I don't see that.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I mean, maybe it made the rounds on X.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know if he was on Twitter. I don't know if he followed us on Twitter. I know I was friends on Facebook.
Yeah, I never noticed him there.
So we'll have to see. Let's see here. What do we have here? Fat, not so fat. I have a theory that Elizabeth Holmes only had kids to be a more sympathetic for court. Stephanie, thanks for the $9.99. Okay, so Stephanie says, want to let you know in chat that an avid supporter of the show, David Vogel, passed away yesterday. I'm a family friend for 35 years. I know he loved this channel, HLM and RBM. Rest in peace, brother. Oh, that's terrible.
Oh, man.
Mike, that's
poor
awful.
Guy.
That is awful. Oh, God.
That's terrible.
Yeah. That's really horrible. Well, thank you for letting us know, Stephanie.
You know, man, our next movie night, I know what that cat liked. I'll pick something he would have liked.
Wow. I don't see, yeah.
Yeah, I don't see anything online, but I guess people who knew him know.
I guess so. Guess so. Let's see on Twitter. Dwayne Vogel. God. Do you know what happened?
Oh, he lived in New York City? I didn't know that.
Yeah, I'll have to look. I'll have to see. Do we know you're a family friend for over 35 years?
All right, let's get to the last segment. We'll talk about it on the other side.
All right, I'm just searching here. See if we could see. Okay. All right. Well, yeah. I mean, that is
all right,
news.
man.
Well, thank you for letting us know.
Rest in peace, Dwayne.
Eric Husso says, Scrooge Hitler, if they would rather die, they had better do it and decrease the surplus population. You should check out the Hebrew Canaanite on YouTube. Anti-Zio Israeli goes live during protests and has interesting commentary. Thank you, Mr. Fancy Pants. Joe Sacco created a book with Chris Hedges. That's right. Okay, now I think yes, that makes sense. I knew the name from somewhere. Thank you for that. I have the graphic book Palestine by Joe Sacco. Amazing eye-opening book. Even describes prison conditions described by Chris Smalls. Real Housewives, Orange is the New Black edition. Thank you, Eric Rousseau. Keaton, this is when you go to your wife and say, the audience demands I spread my genes to counter Elon Musk's spawn, and you are doing this to save humanity. Thank you for that, EO Shush. Okay. Damon Wolf, thanks for the $10. Says the Epstein case is the intersection of so much shit. Yes, pedos, Israel's, and elites, and yet the propaganda works so well. People still play it off as normal. I can only hope people wake up. Thank you. Yes, I agree. American Spirit, thanks for the $50. Great show. Thank you. Let's have a cowbell for American Spirit. Appreciate that very much. Okay. All righty, folks. We are going to do one more segment on the night here. We have the last one here ready to go. Okay. So Mike Huckabee and Steve Witkoff have visited the U.S.-backed Gaza Humanitarian Foundation amid global outcry. That's right. They went to Gaza and checked it out themselves, did a little fact-finding, quote-unquote. Senior U.S. officials visited a distribution center for the American-backed Gaza Humanitarian Foundation on Friday, pledging to report back to President Donald Trump about the foundation's operation and defies a plan to address starvation in the Strip amid growing global outcry over the humanitarian crisis. U.S. Ambassador to Israel Mike Huckabee and Special Envoy Steve Witkoff made a rare trip to Gaza on Friday amid heightened pressure, including from within MAGA circles, to reconsider the administration's support for Israel's war on Hamas and intervene in Gaza's hunger crisis. So here is Witkoff's tweet. At POTUS's direction, Huckabee and I met yesterday with Israeli officials to discuss the humanitarian situation in Gaza. Today we spent over 5 hours inside Gaza, level setting the facts on the ground, assessing conditions, and meeting with GHF updates and other agencies. The purpose of this visit was to give POTUS a clear understanding of the humanitarian situation and help craft a plan to deliver food and medical aid to the people of Gaza. The Gaza Humanitarian Foundation has come under scrutiny in recent weeks, with a group of nearly 170 aid and charity organizations last month calling for its closure and accusing the Israeli military of opening fire on Palestinians seeking aid from its distribution centers. Israel has denied the allegations. Of course, they have. So here's Huckabee tweeted out, "This morning I joined SE Peace Mission Steve Witkoff for a visit to Gaza to learn the truth." Yeah, the truth about the Gaza Humanitarian Fund aid sites, foundation rather. We received briefings from the IDF and spoke to folks on the ground. Folks, GHF delivers more than 1 million meals a day and incredible feats. More on that later. In a separate post to his personal account, Huckabee added that Hamas hates GHF because it gets food to people without it being looted by Hamas. Over 100 million meals served in 2 months. Of course, the 100 million meals over a 2-month span amounts to less than 1 meal a day for the over 2 million Palestinians in Gaza. So 100 million meals in 2 months is, of course, not anywhere near enough. He posted the following: went into Gaza today and observed humanitarian food program by U.S.-launched GHF. Hamas hates GHF because it gets food to people without it being looted. And as you can see there is razor wire around where he is going to be seated for his photo, which caught the eye of GHF whistleblower Anthony Aguilar, who made the rounds on several media platforms, including Breaking Points with Crystal Ball, who apparently received a text message from him asking to spread the word about this since he's not on social media. So she tweets, GHF whistleblower Anthony Aguilar asked me to share this message, R.E. Huckabee's staged visit to a GHF site. Aguilar doesn't have social media, so Aguilar texts Crystal apparently, get this far and wide, put this out as wide as possible. Ambassador Huckabee's visit to a GHF secure distribution site in Gaza today confirms exactly what I have accused GHF of violating in the Geneva Convention protocols. It is a violation to use razor wire to inhibit civilian movement at sites designated for humanitarian assistance, water, food, medical. These sites are also built in the middle of active combat zones. So Drop Site News picks up on that and reports Ambassador Huckabee may have inadvertently documented a violation of international humanitarian law. His photo at the GHF site shows razor wire surrounding civilians seeking aid, despite Geneva Guidelines 7.34 and 7.35, which prohibit crowd control setups that risk stampedes or injury, including the use of razor wire near assemblies. The Geneva Guidelines are a set of international standards for the use of less lethal weapons and equipment in policing and humanitarian contexts. These guidelines are non-binding, but they are used by the UN, humanitarian agencies, and legal experts to assess violations and promote compliance with international law. The ambassador's tweet could implicate both the GHF and U.S. officials in IHL breaches, and there they are citing the document itself as part of that tweet. So Huckabee then came back and did this interview with News Nation about his fact-finding mission to the GHF aid site. And this, as you might expect, is just lie after lie after lie. So let's take a look.
To Israel, Mike Huckabee. Ambassador, thank you so much for joining us. I know you're incredibly busy. If we can put these live pictures up once again of these aid drops, and if you can tell us what you're seeing there on the ground, along with Envoy Witkoff.
When we went to Gaza, I think there were a couple of big takeaways for both of us. One was that the GHF program, despite all of the criticism against it, most of it coming from the UN and from Hamas, interestingly, was unfounded. They're efficiently serving meals. They've already served over 100 million meals. That was one of the big revelations. But the second one...
Again, so in his tweet, 100 million meals in 2 months, that's less than 1 meal per day per person.
And this is an important one, is how inefficient the UN process is. Much of their food gets looted and stolen, and once it's stolen, then it's hijacked into contraband that the Hamas soldiers turn around and sell at ridiculously high prices. So it's not humanitarian food when people have to buy it. One of the things we heard from Gazans that we spoke to was their hope that Hamas can get out of there.
Okay. Just to cite this, New York Times citing the Israeli military, no proof Hamas routinely stole UN aid. And separately, Reuters reports the exclusive USAID analysis found no evidence of massive Hamas theft of Gaza aid. So that claim has just been debunked repeatedly. So that's just obviously not true. He goes on.
Done with. They're sick of it. And they know that their suffering is not being caused by Israel, despite what you hear on the international media. They're the ones who are telling us that their suffering is caused by Hamas.
Okay, he claims that the Gazans he spoke to are saying that their suffering is not caused by Israel. So I would like to know, who were these Gazans you spoke to, and why aren't they on camera? You're telling me this guy goes there as a PR stunt and gets Palestinians to tell him that they do not blame Israel for the conditions they're living in right now, and he does not have them on camera? Is that what you want? You want us to take your word for it? That no, the people we spoke to said Israel's not to blame for the conditions here. You talk about having absolutely zero respect for the American people. To be able to lie so outrageously and say that with such confidence is truly stunning. Truly stunning. Now, as for people who are saying we spoke to some people who want Hamas to surrender, I'm sure if you'd speak to people who are starving, they want anything to end the war, right? But the idea that they don't blame the occupying power for imposing a food blockade, you have to be the dumbest person in the world to believe that.
They want them gone, and they love President Trump, and they think he's the one who's the key to getting some of this resolved.
They love President Trump. They love, the Palestinians we spoke to who have been starved for, 4 months straight now? They love President Trump. They love him. I mean, again, this is just shocking. Absolutely shocking in its shamelessness.
Moving forward for a better life for all of them. Is there hunger in Gaza? Yes. It's not as widespread as you might think because a lot of the pictures have already proven to be absolutely erroneous. One was of a child who had a birth defect. Israel, in fact, had sent that child to a hospital in Jordan.
Yes, and Ambassador, that is one example, and I don't mean to step on you here, but this, as you know, is a real problem, and that's why we're reporting on it. That's why it's
Okay, we're going to pause it. So I'm assuming the child he's talking about is this child who went viral because the New York Times put him on the cover. And yes, they did then issue an editor's note, which they made a big show of unnecessarily, that said that the doctor of this boy's doctor said that he was actually born with a birth defect, which apparently, according to the New York Times, contradicted what the mother said, that he was born healthy. But I want to give a shout out to Middle East Eye, who came up with this video. They put this out on Friday. Photos of skeletal Gaza infant Mohammed al-Matawak went viral last week. Some commentators claimed his condition wasn't caused by famine, but was caused by this birth defect. But Middle East Eye visited his mother, who shared photos of him healthy before the siege, debunking the denial and exposing the crisis. So we'll play a little bit of this video. This is Muhammad. Do you see how he is? What is the date of the photo? 20th February. He was considered a healthy weight. Yes. Do you see how he was? I could feed him everything.
So this is a photo of Muhammad as you can see in the details of the photo, it was taken on the 20th of February 2025, around 12 days before Israel resumed its blockade on Gaza.
So there he is. There he is before the blockade. Birth defect, quote unquote, and all, which is why we said at the time it was ridiculous to make a big deal out of that. Whether he was born with a pre-existing condition is irrelevant. A lot of kids are born with pre-existing conditions. That's all the more reason not to starve them. So as you can see, here he is at a healthy weight in February before the blockade. So again, what Huckabee says there is just an outright lie. That was somehow a fake picture or an illegitimate picture, and that's just nonsense.
Our lead today, and it's very dire. There are people there who are going multiple days without food. Whether it's Hamas to blame 100%, or if Israel could be doing more, the United States could be doing more, is a question this morning. There is a piece in the Atlantic I wanted to hit on though that's about. They say Hamas wants Gaza to starve because starvation only helps Hamas end the war in a way that advances its aims. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely.
Oh, wow. What a tough question that is. What a great journalist you got there.
100%. And I'm thrilled that the Atlantic, hardly known as, a pro-Israel news outlet.
You mean the Atlantic, run by David Frum? David Frum, the most neocon of neocons? Yeah, they're an anti-Israel outlet.
And the most Zionist of Zionists.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Being honest about it. But let's look at this week. This week, while many of the European leaders were being celebrated by Hamas for calling for a two-state solution and criticizing and condemning Israel. You had the Saudis, the Qataris, and the Emiratis all demanding that Hamas disarm and let all of the hostages, not some, but all of them go.
Okay, hold that thought, because he talked about the European members threatening to recognize a Palestinian state at the General Assembly at the UN. That is what a lot of this is about. So Drop Site reports, as U.S. Envoy Steve Witkoff and Ambassador Huckabee visited GHF distribution site, Palestinian journalist Osama Abu Rabi describes a staged and deeply cynical performance at U.S.-backed aid distribution centers in Gaza, designed to whitewash Israeli atrocities and present a false image of order and humanity. So some of the points of that report. Aid sites today appeared organized and civilized. No gunfire, no repression, no tear gas, no stampedes, and no casualties. A sharp contrast to the deadly chaos documented daily. Well, I mean, if this weren't so sad and so sick, that would be comical. Of course, they're not going to do that when he's there. The whole point of him going there is to put a pretty face on it. So, of course, they're not going to fire into the crowd when Huckabee comes. I mean, it's ridiculous. That's like, if the health department calls you 3 days in advance of coming to inspect your restaurant, you're going to make sure it's tidy for them. That's why they come in unannounced. Propaganda theater. Trump's envoy, Steve Witkoff, was brought in to witness and legitimize this carefully constructed scene, which Abu Rabi calls a deception meant to erase the reality of mass killings at these sites. And the performance aims to discredit thousands of videos and eyewitness testimonies documenting the deaths of nearly 1,000 Palestinians killed while seeking aid. Distribution today was reportedly limited to families loyal to Yasser Abu Shabab's forces, armed gang backed by Israel, including the general starving population. That could explain why the people he talked to had such great things to say about Israel and Trump, assuming he wasn't just totally making that up, which is not a safe assumption in my view. And withdrawal of violence, tanks and snipers were removed for the day, making room for what Abu Rabi calls a deception ceremony to sanitize the image of a system responsible for bloodshed and hunger. So back to the Politico piece. While Trump has acknowledged the real starvation taking place in the Strip, he and senior administration officials have been critical of the growing number of Western allies vowing to support Palestinian statehood. The State Department announced sanctions Thursday against Palestinian Authority and PLO officials, preventing them from traveling to the U.S. and potentially blocking leaders from attending the United Nations General Assembly in September. Still, Trump earlier this week pledged to work with European partners to set up food centers in Gaza, though it is not clear whether the president was referring to an expansion of the GHF project or a separate venture. And here's the headline: State Department sanctions Palestinian leadership organizations amid global statehood push. So they're doing this to try and dissuade and discourage member states from recognizing a Palestinian state. It's not going to work. Of course, the events that caused this wave of countries from Canada to France to the UK has been this blockade of food and the mismanagement, quote unquote, of the GHF's aid delivery. And that, mismanagement in quotes for obvious reasons. And so they know that this forced starvation is turning the world against Israel in a huge way. And that is what motivated Huckabee to go in there and make this ridiculous show of, well, hey, it's efficient, it's working, and by the way, the people we talk to don't blame Israel and they love Donald Trump. I mean, you talk about a fucking lying sack of shit. I mean, how the brazenness of those lies is just unbelievable. But we'll end this on a message of hope. It's not working. It's not working, and it will not work. Julian Assange and Craig Foster helped carry banners and march on the Sydney Harbor Bridge. Thank you to them both. Thank you to all who marched, who called for peace and an end to the genocide. The world is watching. So there's Julian leading a very large protest march in Australia. Caitlin Johnston, fellow Aussie, says it wasn't that long ago when I sincerely wondered if we'd ever see Assange's face again, let alone in public, let alone in Sydney, let alone heading up what had to be one of the largest Palestine rallies ever held in Australia. Dare to be encouraged. The light is breaking through. And it is breaking through. That's why they felt the need to do this stunt in the first place. And when you look at just how, like I said, if it wasn't so gut-wrenching, it would be funny. It is literally, I mean, it is fucking comical. The lies that he told in that interview and his report back. They love Donald Trump and they don't blame Israel. This is not working. You think these UN member states are gonna say, oh, well, you know, on second thought, maybe they don't need a state. Because like I said, whether you think a two-state solution ought to be the permanent solution to this conflict or not, which of course I do not think it should, this forced famine and blockade is proof that even if it is only a stepping stone towards the abolition of apartheid Israel, it's a necessary step in that direction. You need a state in order to prevent this from happening. You need statehood. You need the ability to organize economically, politically, diplomatically. You need an end to the occupation, because the reason why this famine happens is because they are an occupied people who can be blockaded very easily by Israel, and that's making the argument even to countries who are relatively friendly towards Israel for Palestinian statehood. And I think that is what scared them into doing this. And what a disgraceful display, and like I said, stunningly, if not comically, inept.
They were wearing MAGA hats. I didn't expect that. I didn't expect that. The Zionists, I keep an eye on them, the rank and file down in the trenches of social media. And they've really been pushing these videos of their Hasbara artists in flak jackets and helmets. Who knows who these people are, working for the Israeli government, usually with American accents. Because we're the ones they're really trying to brainwash with the Hasbara, standing in front of pallets and pallets of food, saying the UN won't deliver this food. So you're supposed to think that the UN is just doing this to make Israel look bad. Israel has done everything to distribute food, to give food. All right. Well, first of all, they've been killing aid workers pretty much since this conflict began. It's not even clear to me where they are, where these pallets are. But, you know, you have Cindy McCain, certainly no lefty, going on CNN talking about how they haven't been allowed to deliver this food. If I know Israelis, they literally went to a place where they're not being allowed to take the food from, put someone in front of it, got a camera and said, look at all this food we're trying to get him. I had the displeasure because I wanted to know, man. It's part of my job. I know like a really virulent Zionist, and I usually won't go there, but I just, like, without, arguing with the person, just kept asking questions like about where they get their information from and all that. I was just really like, because I don't know. We don't know, right? We go to like journalists, right? Like, where could you go to believe that there's no starvation in Gaza? And I kept asking, like, so what are there newspapers that, like, where do you get this from? Sent me a bunch of Instagram posts. I knew that's what I was going to get if I pushed enough, showing how there are cafes in Gaza and the is this what starvation looks like? So, I mean, to which I responded, Israel spends hundreds of millions of dollars on propaganda. Like, the internet is full of bots and fake accounts. Like, what makes you think that but this is what they have to go to? Because there is no legitimate news that would say something like this. So where do they go? They go to Zionist organizations. They go to press releases from Israel. They go to pseudo historians that will feed them the people without a land for a land without a people shit. There was no invasion. There was no Nakba because you can't invade land that belongs to you, right? Like, this is where Zionists' heads are at. That's why I pursued a conversation, because, like, you hear that and you're like, what? This is how they think. This is what they believe. So even about the West Bank, like, if you get a Zionist being honest with you, they think that's their land. They don't even think these settlements are illegal, because how could you illegally settle your own land? They're the indigenous people, and they want to talk about linguistic commonalities with the Canaanites and shit. And even were that true, how on earth would that justify this? And of course it doesn't, which is why they got to tell you it's not happening at all. Like, they and I said, okay, but to believe this, you have to believe all the world's media, most of the world's governments, most of the world's populations, the UN, all the human rights organizations, all the doctors and nurses who have come as witnesses. You have to believe they're all lying. Do you see how crazy that is? What do you think the media looked like leading up to the Holocaust? This is the world they live in, man. It's fucking sick. It's sick. It really is what Max said. It's the Church of Scientology, man.
Mm-hmm.
Like talking to these people, it is exactly like talking to a cult member. It is exactly like talking to a cult member. There is nothing you could say to them that they don't have an answer to that is doctrinal, right? Like, they are chapter and verse with, well, you know why you believe that? The KGB.
Right.
What? Where did that come from? Like, they have their own narrative and their own mythology, and it is fucking airtight, and you cannot break it. And when Huckabee goes and does something like this, like, we're not tuned into those people because we're not those people. But I promise you, they all rallied around that and said, see, Huckabee just went there. He showed it. And what's the craziest thing about it is most of these fucking people are liberal Democrats.
Right. Yep. Exactly. Charles Gracia says, due to his lies, I'm 100% confident that Mike Huckabee will burn in hell for all of eternity. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Yep, some Christian he is, huh? Alan, thanks for the $9.99. Eggshell plaintiff rule concept in American common law. Pre-existing conditions are irrelevant in the face of willing harm inflicted. Child having birth defects is irrelevant if he starved. Exactly. It's irrelevant. It's neither here nor there. Stu D says, less than one meal a day, and they have to walk about 12 kilometers to get it in the roasting hot sun through a war zone. Exactly. Holmes and Madoff were prosecuted because they took money from their peer. If not for that, they would not have faced any consequences, says my real name. E.O. Shush says, we get caught laundering money. We're not going to white-collar resort prison. No. We're going to federal pound me in the ass prison. Thank you. Ex-Barbarian says, my take, just yet another Trump extortion. Gates, Clintons, etc. Pay up, buy a Trump meme coin, or you get outed by the Ghislaine Theater as a bonus side grift. Thank you, Ex-Barbarian. Appreciate that generous donation. Sid Artificial says, Keaton, here's $1 for your harem Kickstarter. Furrows Queen says, if only Rumble allowed pictures in the comments, I could show a bunch of housework and tidying I get done on a Sunday night, thanks to you guys. I can now reach my wardrobe and actually close the door. Well, that's great, Furrows Queen. It's not the evening, though. It's the wee hours of the morning over there, right? Isn't it like 5 in the morning over in
Oh,
UK?
yeah.
Goo81, I have seen videos where Gazans yelling in frustration blaming Israel, Trump and the treacherous Arab regimes, especially MBS. Of course, obviously they blame Israel. It's like I said, it's laughable. It's like laughable. Like, that's the level of propaganda. It's unbelievable. But what about Hamas, says Kim Min-ji. Kim Min-ji says, Russ is so right. What's scary about Zionism is the false beliefs are held by a lot of well-educated people. I say this with a lot of doctors. No evidence will convince them. Absolutely. All righty, folks. We want to thank you guys very much for tuning in. If you would like to hang out for the after party, please do join us at dudissidents.com/Russ Rumble. We're going over there for the Q&A right about now. Paid members have call-in access. Everybody else are welcome to hang and watch and join the chat. So please do that, and please smash that follow button over on Rumble while you're over there. That's super important. We're going to take a 5-minute break while we do the Rumble switch. Thanks to Jake for being in the booth tonight. Thanks to the mods for keeping the peace in the chat. And want to give a very heartfelt shout out to Dwayne Vogel. That's absolutely horrible news. Stephanie, if you're still watching, if you could email us, any other details you can share. If you can't, obviously we respect your privacy and that of the family, but that's really gutting news, and so we're so sorry to hear that. But we would love to, learn more, and maybe we can.
That man loved the MCU more than Kevin Feige.
There you go. Maybe we can do, something nice for the, family or something. If there's something we can do, please email us, dudissidents@gmail.com, to let us know. But we are going to take a 5-minute break, and we will be back for the Q&A. So please, patrons, callers, you could start the queue. I see the queue's already forming. We'll see you all in 5 minutes. If you're not sticking around for the Q&A, thanks for being here with us tonight. We'll see you back here on the main show Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern. Until then, thanks everybody very much for staying up with us tonight. Appreciate you all. Be safe and be well.
Courage!
Please clap.